You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 400, the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 5, Return of the Mandalorian. We're going to celebrate this episode in two ways. One is, I mentioned already, 400 episodes in. I think we had plans of doing something a little bit more grandioso, and it just didn't really happen. So the fact that we're getting to celebrate our 400th episode talking about the Mandalorian from the Book of Boba Fett show seems appropriate enough and is exciting to me and should be a lot of fun. But yeah, it's a very monumental mark. We're going to have to come back and do something more official and formally. So 10 years, 400 episodes. Can't say what a honor that is to be a part of. So, and speaking of an honor to be a part of, it's an honor to share this a special momentous occasion with you as well. 400 episodes in.
Yeah.
How are you doing,
crazy.
Jonesy?
Doing all right, man. It's pretty crazy. The show has lasted that long as often as Mike's tried to kill it. So
He has tried many times and we've not let him.
right. He threatens it almost daily, but we've held it off for a while now.
Yeah.
How are you doing, man? Love that shirt, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. This is my Marquis Rose shirt that I spent $13 on at Walmart. So it's kind of big. I don't know what the deal is with that, but it's fine.
But it's
yeah,
cool, man. It's Eye of the Storm cover, and that just came out.
It just came out. Yeah, and it's crazy. Like they have so many. Like of all places, Walmart has tons and tons of High Republic clothing, and they all just launched within the last 2 weeks. So if you are interested in any of that stuff, they've got some really cool designs and super cheap prices. I mean, it's Walmart, so what do you expect? I mean, it's not the greatest quality, but it's better than I won't say some. Yeah, it's better than some of the other shirts. I've spent a lot more for a lot less. How about that?
True.
So, but yeah. All right. Well, let's. We've got a couple things for news. And then we'll get into our kind of breakdown, no holds barred discussion about Chapter 5, the Book of Boba Fett without Boba Fett. And we'll certainly get into that here in just a little bit. But let's talk about, I guess, the big thing that was announced this past week. And that was EA has signed on to do 3 more games. And I think in total, we're getting another Star Wars Jedi franchise game.
Right.
And I think the wording is very interesting there.
Yeah.
And we're getting a first-person shooter, and we're getting a Star Wars strategy game of some sort. And it's about it. It was very general, high level, those kind of things. Give me your thoughts on this, because I know a lot of people, like I had in the show notes that says "suck at EA haters," because honestly, like the hate towards EA is just sometimes it's unfounded, and sometimes I get it. It's legit, but I think for the most part, everybody was really upset with Battlefront 2, and rightfully so. I think they kind of botched that entire rollout. I get it. The crates were, we had Crate Gate, and that was going on for a few years, and they finally did away with it. And I would challenge anybody to, and I do want your opinion, but I was going to say, I would challenge anyone who was turned off by Battlefront 2 to go out there and take a look at it and play it, because the one thing that I always felt about that game was at its core, it was phenomenal. Yes, it had a lot of bugs, and there was a lot of, all the other issues that I mentioned here, but I really enjoyed that game. It is so polished now, and yeah, it probably took a while to get there, but for anybody to say that that was the last, straw, or EA does horrible things with Star Wars. I mean, they almost have a reverence about it with the Star Wars games. What do you, and Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. I mean, that's an EA game as well. I mean, it's under the EA flag, but anyways, tell me what you got. What are your thoughts on these games coming out?
Galaxy of Heroes is probably a bad example, because that thing wants you to spend money and reminds you to spend money all the time. But,
yeah,
I think while EA deserved a lot of the criticism they got, but at the same time, that was the state of games in general at that time, whether it was mobile games and all of the desktop and the console games were trying to find a way to capitalize on microtransactions. And so it was just the thing. It was just what everybody was doing. And EA just happened to be the biggest mark, and with a botched launch at the same time, everything falls apart. Mm-hmm. But I think, when we talk about the Jedi franchise, I mean, this is an extension of the Jedi Fallen Order, right?
Yeah. So
we knew, or there's a lot of speculation. Remember, there's a second Jedi Fallen Order coming out. That might be it. I don't know if that's going to be specific to that or not. Nothing's been officially announced, I don't think. But I care less about the first-person shooter aspect of that one. Although, if they came back out with a Republic Commando type of story, I might have to think about that one. But it's the strategy game I'm actually most interested in, because really we don't get many of those. We don't get many of those with really big titles anymore. And so I think that's the one that I'm most interested to see what they do. What platform does that go on? Is that going to be PC only, or is it going to be, across the spectrum, including mobile, or what? So I think that one might be cool. I don't play video games near as often. Unfortunately, I get motion sick really easy from video. I was just watching.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Sorry.
Yeah, so I was watching my buddy Hard Countered, who's in the chat usually, and I was watching him do his live stream the other night, and he's got this really beautiful ultra wide monitor and everything. And just watching him play Halo, I got motion sick. It's just crappy. It's the worst. I can't even play Minecraft. It's that sad.
Oh no. So no VR games for you, huh?
I would still try VR. I would do the whole movie watching thing that you and I talked about with VR.
Well, if you don't get one, the next time you're over here, I need to get you in the headset, and I'll let you play the VR game from Star Wars that they've got out.
Yeah, I've played it. I played at my buddy's house there for a while. So and it was cool, but it was only so much I could do of it at a time. But anyway, we don't need to go into more about how I'm kind of a wimp there. But it was
wussy is the word I would use. But yeah,
right. That's not sensitive enough anymore, Albert. But it's cool. Again, we want more games. We want more content. We know we've got Hunters coming out, which you and I'm getting actually more excited about it after we saw some of the gameplay. So I think that might be a lot of fun here. And
it's gonna be fun.
Yeah. What we really need though is a Star Wars version of Puzzle Quest.
You and I have been talking about that.
That's the thing we talk most of. Well, it's like Star Wars and then Marvel Puzzle Quest.
Yeah.
So, if you want to join our Marvel Puzzle Quest thing, we're Cantina Cast.
Yeah, if you want to join our alliance on Puzzle Quest, there's like 4 of us, I think.
That's right. 4 strong.
4 strong and growing. What do you
think about the?
I mean, it's all. I think it's good news. I mean, when it comes to like, I can be very like picky about. No, I shouldn't say picky. I can be very selective maybe about games, and I can certainly, when it comes to Star Wars television, Star Wars movies, Star Wars games, I'm just not really that selective though. I mean, I'll play just about anything to give it a chance.
Right.
But there's a podcast or there's a show that's dedicated just to Star Wars gaming, like going through all of the games and playing all of them, reviewing and talking about them. I mean, I'm sure if someone hasn't done it, just jump on that, because there's probably a big audience for that.
So badly want another card game from Star Wars.
Right. Yeah. Like an actual, like a trading card game.
Yeah. TCG. There's a gap now. And I know they seem to kind of come and go a little bit these days. And I know that Magic the Gathering and whatnot, there's a bunch of things that go wrong with that type of thing, but I just miss it. I love the artwork.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. You're an image guy. Okay. Well, so that's coming. Well, I'm sure we'll get more information about that as the months roll on. There was really no dates on this stuff, and I would expect some of this stuff to not really hit till next year. So.
It was literally like, hey, we're making 3 games.
Yep.
Thanks.
And we're really EA out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we got that. And then the other thing, and not really huge, but I think it's relevant given that we're going to be talking about Bryce Dallas Howard. She was announced to be officially directing one of the season 3 episodes of Mandalorian, which, I mean, I'm pretty freaking excited. I mean, give this woman her own TV series, or give her a trilogy or a movie at this point. I mean, she just has done so well with the franchise so far. Maybe she takes after her dad, maybe it's in her DNA, but she certainly stands on her own now, especially with this episode. There was just stuff in here that I was just blown away that she was doing. And we're going to talk about that. It's actually one of my goods, but I'm sure you're excited as well. I know you like the stuff that she's been doing.
Oh yeah. I mean, she's been knocking out of the park, and what's more interesting is to speculate what story she might tell in Mando season 3, and whether she's going to get 1 or 2. It sounds like just 1, but who knows? But I'm kind of hoping that she gets another Bo-Katan episode, because I really like the way that they shaped that and the way they shot that one. So I thought that would be a lot of fun to bring those familiar characters back to the common directors. And I don't want to pigeonhole anyone to anything. But at the same time, when they do such a great job and the writing is there and the directing matches up with it, and you've got the performances to back it up, I mean, you've got a recipe for something fantastic. And this episode certainly sets up a lot of those opportunities for what season 3 is going to look like. And you and I, we got a lot of things this week but we weren't really sure we were going to see all of it. We expected to see it, but how they were going to visualize it. And sure as hell, we got a visualization that I was not quite prepared to see.
Oh, well, yeah. lots of that in this episode. Okay, well,
there you go. Qui-Gon Jinn, give Bryce and Ron Solo 2. Ron Howard, her dad. I'm on board. Solo 2, let's make it happen. The Calrissian Chronicles, I don't care. Give me something.
Something from there, right?
I gotta drop the Calrissian Chronicles wherever I can.
Yeah, it's like the third time you've brought that up in the last month. So
yeah,
you're doing your job. So
yeah, Donald Glover's the man.
Oh yeah, he really is. He's done nothing wrong yet. Okay, well let's get into the show because I have a feeling again this is probably going to be a longer episode, so I'm going to apologize in advance.
Yeah.
Pull up a chair, grab a drink, grab a pillow, whatever you need to get through this episode. Let's talk about. We always start this off with the good, the bad, and the ugly. Things that we felt went really well, things that we felt could have been better, and then things we just felt were ugly. And I'll start first. So I've already talked about the first one a little bit, but Bryce Dallas Howard and just the art direction, some of the angles and the shots that she had done were very unique, very different. I think. This is not. I'm not going to get in the soapbox I was on last episode, but I think we're still continuing to see what Star Wars means or what Star Wars is redefined or maybe further defined. How about that? That's probably a better term, given what these creators are doing, both with the writing and directing and the cinematography, the costume designs, the color choices. All this stuff is. I mean, they are just going out there and they're taking Star Wars and moving it further along, right? We're not always going to get the same dirty, dingy kind of episode 4 stuff, even though I know we all love that. They're continuing to kind of move this along. So I do appreciate that we are getting new Star Wars content and I love the fact that people like Bryce Dallas Howard are bringing just a different stuff to the technical aspects of Star Wars more than just all the stuff that we see on screen and the stories and that sort of thing. But what about you? Well, I'll give my other two real quick.
Sure.
Mando the Darksaber. I mean, this is kind of an obvious one, right? I mean, I wasn't expecting him to, one, be there out of the gate, and then two, using the Darksaber like he did immediately, which I just loved, and I'll get to that here in a little bit. And then the other thing that I really liked, there was a lot that I liked about this episode, but I could be here all day. I really enjoy the Mandalore lore. And what we learned about that. I already used that joke last time we were talking about it. So if you remember that one.
No, it was actually funny this time.
Yeah, no, I wasn't trying to be actually, but
it's all the more funny.
It's all the more funny, right? But no, the lore, right? And some of the, oh man, I was so excited. Some of the stuff that we've been calling since like season 1 about, we're going back to Mandalore. And this, I mean, it just, to me, again, maybe I'm just, they're just teeing all that stuff up. Right. And it's exactly what I was hoping we would get. Hopefully other people are going to be interested in it. I got hyped about it just because she was talking about all this prophecy and what happened to Mandalore and the mythosaurs. And I'm like, holy crap, this is all the crap that we talked about in season 1 coming to at some point. So, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I'm happy with the fact that she mentioned it. So those are my big 3, but give me, what do you got? What were some of your goods?
Man, they're pretty consistent. The director, what was funny is the way that the episode was shot. It was just so dynamic, and the action sequences, and even action sequences is even Pelimoto getting attacked by the animal there in the hangar. Even that was more dynamic than some of the fight scenes that we had in some of the earlier episodes.
Yeah.
Which I just found super amusing to me. But I'm agreeing with you, man. Everything was just really well designed from a shot layout and the cut, the way that it was cut and edited, fantastic. Everything was just hitting the marks as far as, the way that it was directed and the way that it was shot. And that was the consistency I think that we had missed. And what was really weird, and I know this is going to come up because it comes up all over the internet, was it felt very much like a Mandalorian episode, right? Because it kind of was.
Yeah.
But it also felt that way because of that direction. Like you were saying, the art direction and everything else, all of it felt that same type of atmosphere too. And so, and I don't know if it's just the continuity with Bryce Dallas Howard or the way it was, or just the characters or what it was, but I have a feeling it's probably a little of a bunch of things. Another good thing I had was actually Amy Sedaris, and I have not been a fan of Pelimoto. It's a little too silly for me sometimes, but I really actually enjoyed her in this episode. She was still a little over the top at times, but I loved the whole used car salesman, shtick that she was going and doing. And let me tell you about this, honey. And then it was just, it was just great, and that pride, and when they got the starfighter up and going and stuff was just a lot of fun to see. So I was really glad that she, to me, it was a lot of opportunity to kind of make up for some of the other things, and some of that's the writing, but also it really fit her character. And so when we came back to Mos Eisley and we saw her, I didn't have this groan that I thought I would, but yeah, there were some other good things too, but we'll talk about it throughout the show. All right, so give me a bad one then.
So it was hard for me to come up with a bad one, honestly. I mean, let me say this. We'll kind of talk about this at the very end. It's probably like the second to last question I have once we're done breaking down the episode, but just to kind of tease you a little bit now, the question about whether this was a Mando show versus a Boba show, why did they decide to do this? You, Mike, and I had our own little personal discussion going on in Discord, kind of talking about it
Right.
in our safe space. And there's anybody that I guess what I want to say, it's okay for you to love this episode and not be happy with the fact that Boba Fett wasn't in it. It's okay for you to love this episode and feel like it shouldn't have been here because this is a Book of Boba Fett and not The Mandalorian. Those are all fine. And that's actually a really good thing, because the amount of conversation and the amount of, I mean, it's just, again, I want to get to this in a little bit, but all of that's just fine. And so I wouldn't say that's a negative for me. I had it originally in my bad, and I was like, you know what? No, it's not a bad. It's just a different, and I'll again express some of that a little bit later as to why they did this, why I think they did this, what it means, and what the difference is there. So the only thing that I could come up with, honestly, for the bad was the very towards the very end when what was it, Carson Teva and
Lieutenant whatever,
well, whatever his name was, we'll call him Duke Skywalker since he was Luke Skywalker, right?
Lieutenant Duke.
Lieutenant Duke. That whole scene felt like it was only there to show the speed take off, him hitting the bus, the nitrous oxide or whatever he was using to get out of there. It just felt like it was just that. And so that it wasn't bad. I mean, it was really cool. The payoff was fine. It felt kind of gimmicky, but I mean, apart from that, I mean, it's kind of minor. I mean, in the grand scheme of the whole episode, I get why they did it, and it was fun, but unless there's some value that I'm just not seeing here, it just felt like it was kind of put in there last minute or whatever, or not last minute, but it didn't have to be in there. But anyways, what was your,
I agree with that one actually too, because it was campy is kind of what it felt like, and not necessarily in the good way. It was almost rehashing what we had seen with their previous encounter in season 2. And I think that was just it seemed a little lazy on the writing, I guess, as we could say, but I'm with you. It was definitely a setup to do something else. But it was okay. I had one that was in bad, but I'm actually going to dump it into ugly because it just keeps getting brought up. And so I feel like it is now downgraded to ugly.
Oh my goodness. All right.
Yeah.
We got some movement here. What is it?
It's the backgrounds again, like the backgrounds and the lighting of how that stuff is working. It's super flat. It's out of focus, but it's not like out of focus, like depth. It just feels like low image quality of sorts. And it's just really washed out. And the Elysium City type of thing, I don't know what else you want to call it, but it reminded me of Elysium. And some of the folks on Discord had the same exact thought about it, but it was just so artificial lit. And I didn't know if that was intentional or not. It just felt very artificial with the lighting, especially when he's walking and the light comes over him. Mm-hmm. But when he's going to the elevator and stuff, it's just the backgrounds. Just look at the backgrounds, and again, I know not everybody's going to be doing this, but go look at the backgrounds, and they just feel out of place. They feel not part of the environment. So it lost some immersion for me. And again, I'm more in the weeds than a lot of people would be, but I'm kind of getting tired of it, only from the fact that I expect it was working so well before, but now we're starting to see the limitations, and it's like it needs a higher res upgrade. We need to upgrade the video cards here to pump out the Halo room a little bit better. But so that's mine, just because it keeps coming up. I downgrade into the ugly. What about you?
Well, on that note, I think the way I would summarize it is, we are seeing some of the limitations of that tech, right? There are certain scenes that we felt like have been awesome, and you can't even tell. And then there's certainly other ones that have stuck out like a sore thumb. And then for people like you're a tech head, so anybody, just for context, right? That's important here, because someone's going to go off and say Cantina Cast hates the Book of Boba Fett and technology they're using. No, Jonesy is just one of those people that really pays attention to that stuff, as he does sound and cinematography and anything in that nature.
All the things.
All the things. See, I'm not that. That's why I'm like all the things. That's right. What he does.
Yeah, me.
And so it is important. And then there are people out there that write reviews on this stuff and talk about the tech itself. So you're not weird. Not at least when it comes to this. As far as the I think we're just seeing some limitations there, and I would agree. There's certain times when it does stand out, and sometimes it works really well. But okay, now as far as my ugly goes, my ugly is the fact that I have no doubt that Peli Motto had something going on with Jawas, and that is effing disgusting. So excuse my language. I know I didn't say anything, but I was completely grossed out. It was
furry, disgusting.
Furry, yes. Oh my goodness! Like the fact that we learned about Jawas now being furry after we learned that she dated one is even more disturbing. So
I laughed so hard. I laughed so hard when I watched that. Like every time I watched it again, I just chuckled a little bit harder. I just thought it was funny.
There's furry.
She had a lot of exhaust port jokes.
She had one at the very end that had me laughing.
There.
No. So there was so going back to Peli Motto just real quick, I'm with you. Like until this episode, I was just kind of like, I don't really care. Some of the jokes fell flat. And I would say, in all fairness, I wouldn't put this as a bad, but some of the jokes fell flat for me on this episode. But some of them I wasn't even thinking. I just laughed out loud about that one. And then the J, what she's called it, the J thrusters. I've got it written down here a little bit later.
J-type,
J-type thrusters make your exhaust port basically pucker up, if you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Stuff like that was
that'll evacuate your man.
That's what it is. And then there's another one when the Jawa was asking her out. Well, we're getting into all the good stuff. I don't want to ruin this stuff, but some of those lines are really good, and some of them just weren't. But I'm with you, man.
Overall, she was much more. I wouldn't even say tolerable, like enjoyable, actually.
Yeah. Well, it's getting to the point now where it's like, okay, I'm starting to level out. Like, I get it. This is where she's at. She's not changing. She's very consistent. And so I'm starting to enjoy it, right? And that's part of character development, part of you growing with the show, which unfortunately a lot of people don't get to do these days because they'll see, one season of it and go, I hate this whole thing. And they don't give it any time to just set in and really try to understand what the writers and the actors and directors, but I'm getting on the soapbox. So let's get out of here. All right. We'll get into the show. I'm going to pull up my visual as well. What are people talking about here? Jawas? Yep.
Look at I don't think
furry. Rob says totally nasty. Lauren can't keep herself calm. She's probably hysterical at this point.
Yeah.
I bet there was some improvised and Peli scenes. I would imagine she does seem like she is one of those what is the word? Improvisational actors.
There you go.
Or at least has some background. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, and there's Alex. Alex is the voice of reason. The world is coming to an end.
There's someone for everyone.
Wow.
Okay.
Well, Katya had a good one too. To SNL.
Oh,
a little too Saturday Night Live at times. Yeah,
at times. That's okay. I'll take it. Okay, well, let's get into the episode, and we're going to start right here because,
good old
my goodness. What's that?
Yeah, they kind of pulled the Band-Aid off, just ripped it right off, huh?
I was not expecting him to show up, much less in the middle of a carniceria, right? A little Mexican meat market here that was going on. That's a joke for my brother who's on the show, who's with us tonight. But yeah, this is him walking through. Now, here's the thing about this scene though that I didn't really get to see. Like, we got it in the background. We used it for the artwork for this title card, but this is like tauntaun meat. Like those are those are like tauntaun heads that are hanging in the artwork. Here, I see if I can.
Yeah, I see the artwork. They're tauntaun head. I didn't.
Yeah, I mean,
I meant to ask you before we came on if you knew what kind of meat that was.
Yeah, there's no. They don't show the heads in any of these scenes. It's just kind of, what look like cattle sitting there hanging. But I just wish they would have put one tauntaun head in there because I thought that was really kind of a neat take. But
we'll have to do some rib analysis there, as you can see on the image there on the right hand side. We can. Because I believe in the Wampa Cave, there's some remains of some Wampa.
I'll do a side-by-side comparison.
That's right. That'll be the Patreon analysis episode.
Yeah. Qui-Gon Jay says, I was hoping he'd start punching them like Rocky. There we go with the 80s reference. We're already started. We're only like 2 minutes into this thing. So he is there to bring, I guess, Kaba Baez is his name, who's this Platonian-looking, I don't know what he is, mobster guy. We don't really know the details here, but Mando's here to collect the bounty.
And back on the job, right?
Yeah, well, sort of. I don't know that he is though. Like, for me, I when I saw the first step, when I saw it the first time, I thought, okay, he's not here for money, and then he got money. But then later on, when I watched it again, I got the impression he took the job simply to get the information that he needed to go find the watch, right? Children of the Watch and where they were hiding. So
Right.
I wouldn't say, I think it's probably, I wouldn't say it's too premature, but he could be here for the money. Yes, maybe times are hard, but although he gave the money back to Fennec Shan at the very end, so maybe he doesn't need it. But I thought it was more along the lines of, hey, I'm trying to find, my family, and I'll take this job since they may have some information that could lead to this dude or lead to where they are. But I guess it can go either way.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of took it that he was, what do you do after those types of events and you lose Grogu? You kind of go back to what you know. I think you got to keep yourself busy of sorts. But I think it's very plausible that I think what you had there is probably right. He was trying to find his covert or, a family again.
Yeah.
And like we've learned, you don't get very far without a tribe.
Oh,
and so that, so that seems pretty likely. But again, you get a key fob on the side, get a little cash, you'll be all right.
Well, the one thing I liked about this scene is like, it is so Mandalorian, right? There's everything from the dialogue that he uses, and we get to see the puck again, we get to see the fob, all this stuff that was very Mandalorian from those first two seasons was all here again, and so it felt like we were just right back into another episode right out of season 1, right, of all things.
Well, and the way that he delivered the line, I could bring you in warm or cold,
yeah,
it was almost like tired sounding.
He sighs. If you watch his body, he sighs right before he says it, like, man, here we go again,
Yeah, which I just love. I mean, it's the little subtleties like that and the way that the dialogue comes out. It just tells you like, oh goodness, and you can tell he's kind of done with that life a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
To where he's getting a bit old and he's just tired of people jerking him around here.
Yeah. And then he gets into this whole fight scene, which, I was just like floored by it. I mean, I thought it was great beginning to end. And I don't know there were some highlights. I mean, we got to see once again, people shooting his backpack and not really doing any damage to him. But the minute that he ignited the Darksaber, like right here, I was just like, I freaked out. Like, oh my God, I can't believe he's actually going to use this thing. And I was actually really surprised, or I would say surprised and also happy to see that he was struggling to use it. Absolutely. Because that's what Sabine had the problem with. And we'll get into all of that here a little bit later once we get to the training that he goes through with the armorer. But yeah, right from the get-go, I mean, you could see him. He's like dragging it. It feels like it's very weighted. He's very sloppy when he's slinging this thing around. Like, it's just, he cuts so far. I mean, he's overextending himself right here in this shot that we're showing, that he cuts through that tauntaun meat or rack of ribs or whatever the heck it is that's hanging there in the background there. He cuts through a few other Cladonians as well. But some really good stuff here. So any other, before we get to the big main thing here, before we talk about his leg, but
yeah, it was very much like someone swinging a broadsword is what it reminded me of. It was very, very knight-ish, of someone who's, young Arthur trying to pull this sword from the stone and can't barely lift it. Right. It kind of recalled some of those images, but I was with you, man. And when he pulled that out, I was like, there's no way he's going to use the Darksaber, right? Because I thought he'd use the spear or just shoot people, but I was floored. I was super excited, but I'm with you. I'm glad that it was difficult. I'm glad that we see the clumsiness and the inability to really wield it effectively, and that there's something unique about it. Like, you could tell it's like, okay, this doesn't make sense, right? There's something that doesn't make sense about the Darksaber. Of why is it seems like it should be so light. Why is he so sluggish with it? And why does that make sense? And then that he goes and tries to act like it's a normal sword, and pays the price and gouges his leg, is just made it all the better. And again, he's human after all. He got bit. He got bit on the hand. That seemed to be really traumatizing for him. And then he hurt himself by scorching his leg pretty nasty there. Yeah.
Yep. And it's probably it's probably two factors. And again, we've talked about some of this before, but the fact that he's wielding the Darksaber, and because it does get heavier with its usage. There's a reason for that Kanan explains, and I have all the dialogue, and we'll talk about that from Rebels, from Trials of the Darksaber episode. And then two, and this goes back to Legends, right? Being able to hold a lightsaber is very different than using it, because it takes a very high level of skill in order to use it, right? And that's why the Jedi are so proficient at it, because they can tap into the Force, and it makes them better. It's not to say you can't use it if you don't have the Force, and that's the whole conversation that Kanan's having with Hera and with Ezra and with Sabine herself when they're talking about training and using it. So anyone can really use it. Anyone can really use a lightsaber. It just takes a different level of effort. So it's all good stuff, right? I guess we're getting to see all that stuff. But yeah, he takes a nasty blow there, cuts a few more of these guys in half, and then he goes.
I was not prepared for this part.
So, and anybody that feels like, this show has gotten soft, or the writers have gotten soft. I mean, come on. This is Mando doing what Mando does. It's not what Boba Fett does right now. But it is very Mandalorian of him, and I thought it was brutal. He's already got the vibro knife in his chest there, and he still puts him in two, right, with a Ginsu knife there.
Yeah, so why was that out of character for him at this point, though? For him to really, literally hack someone in half when they're already down for the count, and he could have started hauling him in.
I have lots of pictures of this, as you can tell.
Yeah, I mean, you've got like a whole slideshow just frame by frame here.
Well,
but it seemed excessive to me. I mean, he yelled and had kind of this rageful moment too, and I just wasn't sure where that was coming from. Like why he felt that was necessary.
Yeah, I think it's one of those in the heat of the moment. I mean, he already stabbed him in the heart, so he probably was already ticked off to the point before that. Plus, he had already been cut, so I don't know, just probably a rageful moment. Going back to who he was before he met Grogu, and maybe part of it is feeling like he didn't have a family, and this is, he needs to turn this bounty in, and he really didn't want to have this fight. He was already having a bad day. I mean, who knows?
Or was it just a literal callback to episode or chapter 1 of The Mandalorian season 1?
Yeah,
where he pulls the guy through the door and
cuts him in half potentially.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah. No, I like it. Maybe it's just a symbolism.
It seemed brutal and excessive to me. Just from where we left him at, it was just surprising.
I thought it was fine, but I do see what you're saying, but I don't care. I loved it. I thought it was great because we don't really get to see this stuff all the time.
No, we don't, and I'm not complaining. It just
yeah.
It was shocking. It was surprising.
It's very like Quentin Tarantino of him right here. So, okay, so. This is another shiny moment for me. I thought this was great because you got all these line workers that are working in a factory. I mean, they really did a good job with the costumes. They look like
literally do look like it's kind of like the dog pound.
Yeah,
it looks almost cartoonish. The guy with the beanie. I like the guy with the beanie. They're on the middle right.
It's cold. Yeah. It's cold inside of a.
Oh, I know.
Meat locker,
but he looks like a cartoon character. Like remember the bulldogs they would have that were. The bank robbers and whatever, and they'd have beanies on.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm thinking. I'm probably thinking of DuckTales. What were those brothers called?
I don't know. You're like going all Albert on me at this point. So, but here's where he had the head. So it wasn't enough that he cut him in half. Then he lobbed his head off, and thankfully, I mean, they didn't go so far as to show like blood or this thing saturating with blood at any point. So.
Oh, they did. Actually,
did they? I didn't see it. They did.
It's dripping. So, and not here, but when he's walking by the camera up close, you can see streams of blood coming down.
Oh, like he's trailing it behind him.
Yeah, and I looked to see if that was his leg, but I'm pretty sure it was the head. So
yeah, I would imagine it's the head since he's got to show proof. Yeah, because he could have cut off anybody's arm.
Right, and you do see a blotch on there, but yeah, there's definitely streams of blood coming down as he walks by the camera.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, these guys have no loyalty. I mean, well, they do, but it's like, I mean, I got bills to pay. I've got kids to feed. I'm going to go ahead and take some of that Republic.
Oh, yeah. Free money, right? Yeah. So, yeah, pause in there. So, a lot of people have been like, okay, this is what I wanted to see Boba do all season long. Did it bother you that we saw this from Din Djarin or
no,
and not from Boba yet,
no.
or what?
No.
Okay.
Because it goes back. So, I mean, and I know I'm kind of being cheeky, but it goes back, and I get it. I've seen those people asking questions, and people asking that same question out there. For me, it just goes back to you got to understand what they're trying to do with Boba Fett. You got to understand that thematically, that character's gone. He's dead. He no longer exists. Does he come back? I don't know. Maybe so. Who knows? There's always that possibility. But right now, he is trying to be a different person. He's got a new lease on life, and he's been changed, right? He has developed. He is not the same person anymore because of what the time that he spent with the tribes of the Tusken Raiders. So it's not surprising that we haven't seen this. I think Boba Fett is still fully capable of doing that, and if you really needed to tap into it, he certainly can. But this is a a tale of two different people right now. You've got Mandalorian, who is still, this is all still within his DNA, and because I mean he went right back to the zealots of the Children of the Watch,
Right.
So he's still got the I'm a Mandalorian, weapons are my religion, I'm a robot, I'll kill you kind of mentality, where Boba Fett's more refined, if you will. He's kind of evolved a little bit. That's how I see it. So it doesn't surprise me at all that we haven't gotten that from Boba Fett, and we certainly got it from Mando.
Right. Yep. That makes sense.
This is very Return of the Jedi, by the way. The whole
It was
title sequence and title of the episode.
very on the nose, though. Return of the Mandalorian.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's Jon Favreau, so I mean, come on.
Right.
I think he's not being shy about a lot of these references and some of the throwbacks that are here.
So yeah, here we are on Elysium.
So Elysium. Okay, so I've seen people have said, "Oh no, that's Halo," and it's Elysium, and it's a whole lot of other things. It's also Telos from Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic 2, if you ever played that game. And that's shown that planet or whatever ring has shown up in a lot of. But really, this goes back, and I'm not going to get into the basement. There is a novel that was written in 1970 by Larry Niven called the Ring World. Sorry, and that Ring World series of books was the very first time this concept of this kind of a colony that lives on an orbital ring of some sort was ever written. And since then, there's been lots of variations of it. Arthur C. Clarke has done it, but for the record, so everybody knows, yes, it's Halo because everybody played that game, right? But they've been toying with this idea like this forever, and this is our first time visually seeing it, of course, in Star Wars. But we've had examples of it in the lore and legends before. So, but either way, it was really neat to see. The one thing I would say that I got geeked out on is the novel Ring World. It actually has, like, you can see these sections that have light and some have dark.
Right.
So those are on purpose. They have these things. You can't really see it here, but they have like an inner circle of these massive plates that kind of float in the air. And so what it does is it blocks out the sun strategically to give to
day and night.
Yeah, synthesize like day and night cycles. Although it moved a little fast for me when they were showing it, but I don't want to get into all that. But that's why you see this kind of like pattern. So different sections are in the morning, or different sections are in the day when other sections are at night. So
makes sense. Yeah, I liked that it was something different, something we hadn't seen in a TV or movie for Star Wars before. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, no, I did too.
Something different than going to a planet, jumping planet to planet to planet,
Yep. He gets this is him kind of limping along. He's limping throughout all this. So you can tell he's hurt really, really bad, which I thought he did a really good job of physically acting like that was ailing him.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just kind of cycling through some more shots as he's kind of making his way to turn in the bounty. Here's the elevator scene. I think this is now the third Star Wars elevator scene that we've seen on screen. We had the one in episode 4. There was the one that we had in, was it?
We had one to Return of the
Last
Jedi.
Jedi. I think it was Last Jedi. Do we have Return of the Jedi too? Well,
Luke and Vader.
Yeah.
And then Luke and them coming out of to meet Vader too. They had multiple.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to compile those. I want to put a list of all of the elevator scenes together.
You can make an elevator montage.
Yeah, because that's what I do. But yeah, I'll do that at some point. But I thought this was really funny. It was very, it's kind of like gimmicky, or we've seen this kind of thing before, where somebody comes in an elevator and it's real awkward. We didn't get the music. Rey and Kylo. Good grief. Yeah, see, there's material here, Jonesy, for all the elevator scenes. So Katya's going to bed. Good night. Oh, thanks. She said, congratulations on 400. She has to sleep. She's out in the middle of Brazil or something. I thought it's pretty late out there, but thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, but no, this was really funny how he was kind of looking at him, and the minute he looks at him, he like turns away really quick, and he just, does he shake his head there? He looks like he's just going like he's moving his head back and forth slowly. The alien, I guess, after he looks at that head.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Yeah,
that's what I thought. But all right.
Comes into a nightclub. Yeah.
Yeah, this guy's like, check this guy out, and he's dancing. The guy in the middle there, he's like the only guy dancing on the floor.
Yeah.
Not really good.
No.
Nope.
They looks like you designed his costume.
It looks like I'm dancing. How about that?
That's
true. Yeah. So he comes in, he turns in the the bounty, and we don't really get a lot of information on who this leader is, and her little posse here. But she definitely wants to hire him for more jobs, and I don't know if they were alluding to maybe this is a contact that maybe he comes back to at some point, since this is kind of a, hey, he knows that he's got work here, but it's possible. What's going on here? Dante says, I love that guy's dancing. Of
Great.
course you do.
Yeah. So what's
but yeah.
everybody speaking Huttese? I mean, Huttese seems like is that just an underworld language, or is it
I think so, yeah.
common enough, I guess?
No, I think it's more like if you're part of the underground, or underworld, it's kind of like you have to know that language.
Okay.
At least that's how it's been in like legends and even in canon. Anytime you're in the underworld, it's like everybody speaks Huttese, and likely the influence of the Hutts and just how much power they had over the years, right?
Right.
They kind of made it their language and forced it upon people. So he finds out from them that it's on Kolzak Alley by the heat vent towers. He has that little parting line at the very end where he's pointing at the head and says, I'd put that on ice if I were you. But he seems very disinterested in like, okay, I got what I need. I got to get out of here, even though she was like trying to get him to stay and run more jobs for him. So
she wanted him to have a meal with her, which is just odd.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get finally a good shot at his leg. And he's in pretty bad shape. He finally kind of dropped the tough guy routine, though, when he's walking through the streets or even walking up to check in on the bounty. He still has to kind of tough those out, but he's in the elevator by himself. You finally see that, man, he's not doing well.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. That's a good point. I've noticed that as well. Like he's struggling more when there's not people around, but then he kind of pulls it together, a little bit more stoic when he's walking around and out in the public.
Right.
And this is is this where you were talking about the lighting was kind of weird?
It was one of the scenes. Yeah. It was where the elevator was at too, when he got back into the elevator the second time.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it was just a little washed out, but yeah, this actually was okay. Like most of these environments worked pretty well.
So this is him now heading into the substrata. So the under part, or the underbelly of this ring world planet, or whatever the heck they're calling it. Very cool. I didn't realize what he was doing here. I mean, no, I don't think anybody really did. But when the reveal happened that he saw these marks, which is similar. I mean, this was kind of we saw this kind of imagery back on the with the Cara Dune episode, right? When he's looking at the tracks and all that. But
yeah, I like it that they have kind of a secret code on the walls, and you only if you're looking for it, you can find it, but otherwise you'd never notice.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like you'd have to have some kind of Mando tech, right, to be able to see it.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah. But here's the symbol of the watch. So you can see it's kind of an eye, mythosaur skull head mixed with like what looks to be like an eye on top. Kind of cool. This seems very scary. Again, Imperial design, no rails anywhere to be seen.
He's holding on to a handrail.
Well, that's the only one. But then he gets down
there's
here.
There's another one
catwalk.
down there
There's no handrails on any of the catwalks. I just have a problem. It's like that's a phobia of mine.
Well, like even walking down the stairs, there's no handrail for him to. That's why he takes a slip, trips, and falls.
Yeah, he's got a jetpack though. And then he finally gets over here to where he sees a man, and I was not expecting this. I mean,
no, I wasn't either.
I was just like, whoa, my gosh, it's the armor, which was really cool. And this is where we're going to get into some of where I felt like it was really good, and it was very heavy and dense in terms of the lore and some of the foreshadowing, and just he threw a lot of stuff at us.
You could watch this. You could watch this sequence while he's engaging with the armorer and with Paz Vizsla, probably 4 or 5 or 6 times, and glean something, another little detail out of it each time you watch it. It's that good, and like you said, it's that dense.
Yep, and it further proof. In the show notes that we're using, like I was like trying to take like simple notes, and I'm like, no, I kind of have to capture all of this because there's a lot here that we need to like talk about. So
before the show, I was like, Albert just pasted the whole script into the show notes.
Probably, yeah, it's pretty close to it. So, but yeah, so here they are, and I guess we learned quite a bit out of the gate here. I mean, she seems to be like meditating out there on the edge. I don't know what she's thinking about, what she's pondering about. It's got to be really boring with Paz as your only companion, right? That guy's seems like a riot. But yeah, she's sitting there pondering, meditating. She's got her 2 things. This is the same meditative stance, or I guess stance if you want to call it that, that she was in prior to being attacked by the stormtroopers. Was it stormtroopers? Yeah.
Yes.
When they came in on her down underground. So, yeah. And then he collapses. Paz comes over, and everything seems pretty cool right now. Like, he's like, "Hey, man, thanks for helping me. Hey, bro, no problem.
Yeah.
Glad you're here. We were looking for you." And then,
thanks for your. I mean, yeah, and Din was actually very appreciative of it too.
oh yeah, everything's fine.
Yeah.
Everything's cool until he pulls out the darksaber.
Yeah, this little tool right here.
Yeah. And then you pass is kind of like, dude, what in the world? That's he knows what this is. I mean, like he says later on, the minute he pulled it out, I was like, oh crap, there's going to be some contention here, because I guarantee you that guy's going to feel like that's mine. You know, that belongs to him and his family.
Yeah, like Kylo, right?
Yeah, that
belongs to me.
Yeah, that blade. Oh, it's a good one. I like that. That's another meme I'm going to make, and I'll credit you that, Jonesy. I'll credit for you that one. But yeah, there was what was really cool, and I think I got a picture of it. So we get obviously that.
The revelry that he carries over to the armor was fantastic.
Okay, so, and I think I've mentioned this on the show, but I studied Japanese martial arts for like 10, 12 years. This is the way you hold any weapon. So if you're going to take a weapon to somebody else and hand it to someone, you hold it with both hands just like this, and right before you hand it over, you bow your head. And the reason you bow your head is because in old like samurai times, if someone was upset with you because they didn't like you or whatever, and it was like your lord that you were handing the weapon to, you were putting your head down so they could take it from you and chop your head off, right? That's why they would do that. But the way he handled all this and the way he took it over, even the way he hands it to her, which I don't know if I didn't, but he hands it to her exactly like you would hand over a Japanese weapon as well. So I just love the fact that little detail is in there, and probably missed by millions, but really good stuff there. So she ignites it. And as I think it's right in here that also she makes a really cool comment, and something that we said, I think 2 or 3 episodes ago, I think maybe, I don't know, it was around there, but she says all the talk of the Empire, and they only lasted 30 years. And to give you context, what we were talking about at the time was the Empire itself, like when you look at the grand scheme of Star Wars, right? The whole timeline.
Barely a speck.
It's a smudge on the timeline of Star Wars. So as awesome as the Emperor is, and as awesome as the Empire, and I'm not crapping on them, but it's just when you start looking at the bigger picture of what's happened in Star Wars Legends and canon, it's like these guys didn't really have a great run. They wrecked a lot of lives, and really cool plan as far as how he executed, but terrible, because 30 years is nothing. There have been plenty of other people in Legends that have ruled for longer, and that's exactly what she's saying. I mean, she's almost kind of like, I don't know, she's being snotty about it. What's the word, right? I mean, she's like putting it down. Like, we've been around for 1,000 years, right?
Well, and they persist, right? And this is the example. This is the legacy of the Mandalore people, and it still survives. Their culture survives, even though people or these groups try to come and wipe them out because they see them as such a threat, but they just are unable to. And I thought it was really poignant. I thought, and she was very, a bit snide with her comment, and
condescending was the word I was kind of looking for.
Very condescending. Yeah, that's right on the money. Yeah, of how she was presenting it, because she has no respect for them, and they barely left their mark, and they were wiped off the face of the earth, and now they ran and hid, and it's all over.
Yeah, she's just bitter because she lost her planet, but whatever. Right. She's got every reason to be. And sorry, 10,000 years is how long they've ruled. So a really, really long time. And that, I had it in the notes, and I'll just make a quick comment about it, because she says that they've been around for 10,000 years. I know we've kind of talked about recently, have they changed the timeline at all, right? Is the old Republic still 10,000 years ago, or is it now 1,000 or 2,500, right? Were they going to adjust any of that timeline because of what was happening in the High Republic and some of that stuff? It sounds like that's not the case, or at least with the Mandalorians, canon now, they have been around for 10,000 years. Now, are we going to get the 65,000 years before that, before when the very first Jedi were around and the Sith was established and that stuff? I don't know, but
the really old Republic,
like the really old Republic, yeah. So anyway, I thought that was a good moment there for anybody that's a fan of the Mandalorians and some of the lore that exists.
I like that we got dates too. Like it was formed 1,000 years ago as well. Mm-hmm. So we're getting some basis around the timelines of when it was, and it was great that it was, that Tar Vizsla was both Jedi and Mandalorian. So a lot of those are still 100% in place with the Darksaber's history, and it's just building on it rather than trying to recalibrate any parts of it.
Yeah, and I'm sure Favreau was like, "Hey, I want to talk about this," and he goes and checks with Filoni, and Filoni's like, "Yeah, dude, I already wrote that, and it was 1,000 years, and here's your character, and here's what you need to say, just to stay consistent." So I mean,
right,
it's good stuff. There's now she goes into a little bit here early on about the significance of the blade, right? About whoever wields it can lead all of Mandalore, which we've heard and we've certainly seen from the Rebels episodes, and again, we'll talk about more about that here in a second. But she does point out that it has to be one, per the creed, it has to be one in battle in order to rule. And then she gets into this like tale, which is really her, I don't know, taking a dig at Bo-Katan, or maybe just
Kree's family.
I mean, and this is where she says, "It is said one warrior will defeat 20, and the multitudes will fall before it. If, however, it is not won in combat and falls into the hands of the undeserving, Bo-Katan, at least in her mind, it will be a curse unto the nation. Mandalore will be laid to waste and its people scattered to the four winds." And this is exactly what happened, right?
Yeah.
Bo-Katan, and I've seen like, I get frustrated because I see people out there and they're like giving Bo-Katan some crap about like she was not worthy of it, and understand it's like, dude, she didn't like go get this. I mean, yeah, she wanted it because her sister was ruling.
Right.
But Sabine gave her the sword, and everybody was on board with her. Well, at least everybody that was on Mandalore, not these weirdos that were on Concordia and some of the other sects, right?
Right.
But for the most part, all the families and all the clans, they were like, hell yeah, we got the Mandalorians, we got the Darksaber back. We've got somebody whose a sister was the ruler, even though she was a pacifist, right? This one is not, and of course she was part of Death Watch, but we're going to ignore that piece of it,
right?
But yeah, I mean, it wasn't like, to say that she was the undeserving. And for her, for the armorer, I get it. That's probably the word she's going to use, right? She does not want anything to do with her. They're, heathens or apostates or whatever they call them, right?
Mm.
But I don't think it's fair to say that Bo-Katan did anything wrong here, and she wasn't like fighting for it. I mean, it was literally was gifted to her by Sabine because Sabine didn't feel like that was her place. She had her family, and that was the crew of the Ghost. Okay, sorry, I'm like going rambling on.
But yeah, I think in kind of where you're going is the armorer's beef is really with all of the people of Mandalore that fell into this category, where they strayed from the actual path, from the true path of the Mandalore of how they perceive it, right? And so they were all really damned to this fate. And when you take what we would call the light of the Jedi of sorts, but the light of the Mandalorians with the Darksaber, and you say that's been gifted and it's broken that line of how you're supposed to acquire it, that you would believe that there's a curse is just, I mean, that's how our cultures, that's how these things happen, right? And it's hard to argue it whenever you have such a, serious event happen. And we got the visual of all of that too. But I mean, I just thought it was really telling though that her beef is really with the entire Mandalore, with all of the Mandalore folks that strayed from this in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly there was a disagreement with that, and what other sects were there between Death Watch and everybody else? What we'd have to remain to see. But it was still very telling that it wasn't necessarily Bo-Katan, but I like that she called it a tale of caution, though.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of one of those motherly type of things of, I'm not going to tell you a horror story or a scary or nightmare type of thing, but I'm going to tell you a story that we can learn from. Right.
Right.
And then that type of thing. And so I really like that that's the approach that she went. The armor, the way that she speaks and the way that they write her character is just so fantastic.
Yeah.
And every line is just delivered so well. Like you just listen to her talk all day long.
Yeah, and I I'll let me table that. We'll come back to that here in a second. It's just more about where we see her kind of going a little bit later.
Right.
I want to get to one thing in the comments. So Riss had asked this question. He said, for a minute, I thought she was going to attack Mando with his red hot Beskar staff. And then Fernando says, this episode is superb and the history at the top, the Jedi Council of Honduras. So we have visitors from the Jedi Council there in Honduras. So cool. Thanks for joining us, Fernando. But back to Riss's question. I saw there were people talking about, and even on our Discord, I think I saw some of it as well, about whether or not you felt at any point, did you feel like the armorer was either, I'll give you a couple options: intimidated, jealous, I don't know,
Conflicted in a kind of way.
conflicted in a way, yeah, when she had this dark saber. And here's why I'm asking, because I did not pick that up, and after I saw the chatter in Discord, I thought, well, let me go back and look at it, and I still don't see it. And I'm not, if the consensus is that that's what it was, or there's a possibility, then cool. I'll have to go back and look again. I just picked up on the fact that she seemed very similar, like this is how she was. She was just kind of weird, because, I think he's writing these characters just to be very zealot. They're kind of acolytes. They're kind of,
Right.
I think we were using the word,
Yeah, they're followers of the faith, effectively, right? Yeah.
yeah, they're a cult,
Yeah.
in all the negative, weird all stuff that associates people with cults and the cult mentality, and just how you kind of take things blindly, and the way you talk. I mean, even Paz talks this way, right? And even Mando talked that way when we saw him for the first time. But anyways, the question is whether or not you felt like she was about to try to kill him, or take the darksaber, or kill him with the spear. Did you ever pick up on any of that?
So Darksaber, no. What I saw is that she looked at it with just revelry and just admiration. And I'm curious if she's ever seen it like in person, or it's been a very long time since she's seen it. I wonder if she's ever held it. She seems to know a lot about it, so that's possible. Now, I will say this though: the first couple of times I watched it with the spear, and she turned around, I did have a moment hesitation of like, okay, is she going to do something here? And so I do see where that was coming from, but I think it was mostly that, it was on the hot. It's very intimidating to look and have a spear that's literally molten on the end of it, and then she's turning towards you and talking to you as a character.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I could see why that moment there. But did I get a sense from the way that she was behaving or anything like that she was envious or wanted to attack Den? I really didn't pick up on that type of thing. I think it was just more the turning towards him with a molten hot spear in her hand. And again, she was, I don't know if upset's the right word, but that there was a weapon made of Beskar clearly annoyed her. And that's a no-no, because that's the only thing that was, and that was really interesting too, that only a Beskar weapon can puncture Beskar steel armor.
Yeah.
And Beskar is only meant for armor. And so that was kind of a really cool moment as well. And that's why those are forbidden. So they can't be used against them. So
yeah, and Lauren in the chat said the same. She said, I didn't feel anything until she said that thing about the Beskar spear being forbidden didn't make sense to me.
Right. And I think that's for some people, I think that's where something fell off. Right. And when she turned around, especially when it's, been in the fire for a minute or two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can definitely see where some people got that hint that something just doesn't quite feel right. And yeah. And again, she's kind of curious as to the history of that one too. And unfortunately, it doesn't sound like we're going to get what that true history is of the spear. So that's a little disappointing.
Well, yeah, I think I have a theory about that. We may have talked about it when spear. We'll come back to that here in a little bit, but
okay.
But yeah, so the other thing that I was thinking is, she is kind of like the elder of the tribe, and Alex said it earlier, probably said it best. He said, "Now she just feels like a seer." And so, if you have these like stereotypical characters, they kind of talk like this. They're very mysterious. They're a little awkward.
The shaman of the group.
Exactly. Yeah. So I can see that. That's part of it as well. But if you think about it, what do you think she would have said? Like if she had taken the darksaber and said, well, Mando, I'm going to go ahead and keep this. I'm the armorer. I'm the leader of this clan. I'm going to keep it. Do you think he really would have pushed back on that though?
No, he wouldn't have at all.
Exactly. That's my point too. I think he would have been like, okay, fine, whatever. Just take it. I mean, he still has all his other weapons and he doesn't really use this very well. I mean, he just cut his leg with it. So if she really wanted the darksaber, it feels like she would have just taken it and said, I'm claiming this and no one's going to have it. And whether or not she chooses to say, I'm now going to rule, but her intentions would be very different than like Paz, who wants to, fulfill fulfill fate, if you will, because of his family ancestry and having created it and now being the ruler of Mandalore. It all made sense to him. So
like you said, she's a zealot though. So she won't do that because she doesn't want the curse to come upon her or the rest of them. And they're already scattered and few in numbers already. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think she very much, maybe at one point in her life would have considered that, but not now. Yeah, so Qui-Gon Jinn has a question here. Aren't whistling birds Beskar as well? Are they really a weapon though, or are they ammunition? So
Yeah, I mean it's
like
it's kind of like
armor-piercing rounds.
it's gray for me, no pun intended. But
Yeah.
see what I did there. But it is it's gray because it's a piece of armor, but it's weaponized in some way. So I don't know. Maybe there's a technicality there that they can get away with it. Okay, so let's see, where are we in the story? Because there's some more here. He mentions that the hilt is a Beskar, I guess, a quality that he's never seen before. Right. And I know some people were asking about that. The way I interpret that is, you look at, if you look at like metals, right, and you smelt them down and you use something else, right, and you smelt it down. Over time, impurities start to build up in that material, right? And so if this was created 1,000 years ago and it was taken from freshly mined, Beskar in the mines of Moria, the mines of Mandalore, then yeah, it's probably got a very dense quality, and that you're not going to find anywhere else. Whereas the stuff that they're wearing has been smelted down and used and all that stuff. So that's probably how or why.
But the spear is pure Beskar, though, right?
The spear.
I think that's what. Yeah, the spear is pure Beskar.
Yeah.
So he's come across that before. If it's pure, I didn't know what to take from it either. Though I think it's clearly there's something unique about it though, and again, it's kind of one of those mysteries. I hope they come back with and say, what is unique about this Beskar? Is it infused with something else? And how is it able to contain the blade and whatnot? So I mean, it's a very interesting hilt to be able to speculate on.
Well, yeah. So about the spear. So is it Beskar? Yes, I think it's Beskar. I think somebody made that though. I think the Imperials made it. I don't know why yet, or someone just was, because when we get to Mandalorian season 1 and even season 2, we know they've gone and collected up all this Beskar, right? People are using it. They're almost using it as a currency. It's highly valued by the Empire. More than likely, someone either bought a lot of it, or somebody like, I don't know, Gideon or whoever, maybe, I don't know, somebody took a lot of these, smelted them down. How they did that, I don't know, because I in my mind, I'm thinking there's a very specific way. You got to know how to do that, right? It can't just fire up some charcoal and start burning it down. But to me, it feels like someone made this with the intent of, hey, I want to kill Mandalorians with this, Right. So in that regard, yes, it's pure Beskar, but I think pure and the purity of Beskar, I think, are totally different, two different things. Does that make sense? That's how I rationalize in my head. Like, it's not Beskar, it's Beskar, but it's not Beskar mixed up with anything else, or it's not, I mean, it's pure Beskar. It is really Beskar. That's all they mean by it. Now, I think there's different grades of Beskar, if you will, the purity of the ore itself, and that's where I'm saying, if you smelt things over and over again, you get impurities in there, and so it's never as the original, which I think this hilt comes from. I'm probably just talking in circles for myself now at this point.
Okay, I guess I don't know what pure means anymore.
Well, Jonesy, there comes a time in every man's life.
Right. Well, pure is interpretable, I guess, is what we're saying. Is you can't trust the source of information.
Yeah, and I'm a source of that, so don't trust me either.
Right. But again, we don't know. So Tara Vizsla didn't actually craft the Darksaber, though, right?
I think he did.
Did he? Because I know he stole it from the temple, but I thought they had safeguarded it there for some amount of time before that.
Yeah, but that was because it was stolen. The Jedi took it, and they got it back.
Okay,
but
I didn't know if that was all right in that same time frame, or if it was.
So he's the first one to wield it. That's a good question. I don't know. Now I get what you're saying. Now I get what you're asking. He's the first one to wield it. I don't think they've explicitly said that he designed it. He built it. In my mind, in my headcanon, someone else like her went out and said, I'm going to, kind of like Mjolnir, right? I'm going to go craft you a weapon that's never been seen before, blah, 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 right? And then hands it to him, and he ends up running and ruling with it. So, good question. I don't think they've explored that. Okay, so let's see. But they say it was forged over 1,000 years ago by Tara Vizsla. So, I don't know. That's the line that she says. Sorry, I wrote that down.
Okay.
So, who was both Jedi and Mandalorian. Cool, we knew that. That's from Star Wars Rebels. And then he says, I've met a Jedi. And this was like, kind of her ear I don't know
Your
if she's
quest is
got.
complete then.
Yeah. Here's your reward. Do 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 kind of thing.
Da, 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 da.
He says so she then turns around and says, "Hey, do you want to come back in? Right? We're getting the band back together. It's just me and this dude.
There's 3 of us now, right?
Yeah, and that was a little surprising. Like I thought there were more that made it out, which is fine. I get it. It does play a
They were still fighting when they left Navarro, but yeah, it certainly looked like there were several in the air with them. But maybe they've had other conflicts in the meantime.
Yeah, right. They probably have been on the run, losing people, trying to get to hide. No, somewhere safe. Now I do have a problem with that. I do have a problem with the fact there's only 2 of them a little bit later, and I will be sure to point that out because it just like blows my mind. But
Okay.
yeah, so they all say this is the way. Again, we get more Mandalorian stuff, which is really cool. And there's they play some, I have a note, spooky music plays as Mando walks away with the Darksaber.
Right.
And that's they're kind of foreshadowing that there's going to be some, it's obviously a contentious piece here in a minute. Here's that moment. And you can almost see it. I mean, this is Jon Favreau for anybody that's not familiar, playing Paz Vizsla now. The second Vizsla they've been. We get a little mini montage here where they're putting the what is this?
The fire back into place and hooking it all up.
Yep.
And Paz is curious how he came about it, or about the saber. And Moff Gideon comes up, and it was interesting that they had said that Moff Gideon was responsible for the blood of millions of their kind.
Yes.
Which again doesn't mean they've killed millions of Mandalorians, I guess, but certainly have contributed to. Well, I guess maybe they did. I guess if they bombed the whole planet of Mandalore, then
that's how I took it as.
Yeah.
Now, at least maybe a soft confirmation that Gideon was behind that operation of destroying Mandalore, which we got in a really cool flashback scene.
Yeah. I actually saw TIE bombers do something.
Right. Yeah, that was the first time in a very long time. But yeah,
this part I didn't understand. She opens up her her cabinet, her toolkit, to pull out the exact same tools that she was meditating with.
Yeah, but see, those are So these are the ones. So here's me making an apologist now. These are the ones that she uses. Like these are her good tools, right? We all have the good tools,
not her ceremonial hero tools.
Yeah. And then we've got the crappy tools that sit in the junk the junk drawer and stuff like that. But these are the good ones. This is the craftsman set that she was handed down by her father or whatever, mother, and this is why she's going to use them. So that's how I rushed them. But I was like, wait a minute, didn't she just have these things?
Right.
I think they look a little different too. Like these look like they're made of pure Beskar, where the other ones have like some kind of gold in them or something. I don't know. I'm probably making stuff up at this point. But going back to Paz, it sounds like, just to kind of put a fine point on that, it does sound like they are, like you said, very conscious of who Moff Gideon is, that he's responsible for the Night of 1,000 Tears and all of that. And he makes a comment about, hey, I would have loved to see him dead. I'm kind of paraphrasing. And then Mando's like, no, well, they're going to, the Republic's got him and they're going to hold him accountable for crimes. And she's like, yeah, right.
Right.
Like, and so that to me was signaling that, okay, we haven't seen the last of Moff Gideon. He's probably going to show up, get out of, someone's going to break him out or something, but I have a feeling we're definitely going to see him again, even though he is being held captive at this point. Yeah.
I really enjoyed that we got the visual of 1,000 Tears and what that actually represented. It was all of the bombs falling from the skies.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of dual meaning there of not only the damage and the destruction and the death it caused, but also the visualization of just bombs pouring from the sky to where it just looks like rain or tears.
Oh yeah, I didn't catch that symbolism, honestly, but I like that better than my head of just people crying because they're being bombed. So it's probably both.
Either way works.
It's probably both, right? But I like yours. Yours is much more poetic. Let's see. So we get into the another prophecy. I kind of skipped ahead, but when she's opening up her little Snap-on toolbox here, she says the songs of Eon Past foretold of the mythosaur rising up to herald a new age of Mandalore.
Right.
And then she says, sadly, it only exists in legends, which I was thinking, oh, that's cute. Legends. But yeah, so and for me, again, this is like, I'm willing this to happen. but we were talking about. I'd said at one point I want him to go back to Mandalore. I want him to ride a mythosaur again. We haven't from I think at least in Legends and canon. I don't think they've ever really talked about it. In Legends, the mythosaurs technically haven't existed on Mandalore in a long time. That's not to say they're not there. Maybe they're underground or somewhere else, which I think that's where they live. But
we certainly got some indicators of how he might find one.
Yeah, exactly. See, all this is coming together, Jonesy.
Right.
Okay, but so hopefully that was another Jon Favreau. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to show it to you.
Right.
But yeah, we get to the sphere, and this is where she, she's kind of talking about how this was made. It should have never been made a weapon. That totally makes sense. And she's going to destroy it immediately.
Right.
But she says it puts Mandalorians at risk, which is true, right? Given that their armor is pretty much impenetrable, except for something else it's made of Beskar. And then he says he wants it forged into armor. And this is where we get into this whole we'll get into the Grogu thing here in a second, but then she does make the comment about the Darksaber is a more noble weapon for you to wield. So again, she could have taken it. I think she seems fine with the fact that he has it, at least right now. I think that gets called to question a little bit later when he's, called an apostate, but more on that here in just a second.
Well, I think it goes to, she's not necessarily one that's, I am the Mandalore. I want to be the Mandalore. I think she's more of the true Mandalore will step up and rise, and maybe it's him, and we'll have to see type of thing. Maybe it is a noble weapon, and if he's meant to wield it, then he will wield it. Otherwise, and I think that's where when we get the challenge from Paz, it makes a lot of sense that that again her line of thought was, okay, let's see what happens then.
Yeah,
but I thought it was telling though that he readily offered this up and was like, yep. We need to get rid of this. Let's make it into some armor. Let's do it for foundling. Oh, but let's do it for a specific foundling.
Yeah. Before we get that, we also get the Cautionary Tale, which reminded me of the. Have you ever heard the story of
right
Plagueis? Right?
Yeah,
Plagueis the Wise or whatever he was.
Which oddly enough is on pre-sale now. You can go pre-order Plagueis.
Oh, the book.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Nice plug there. Anyways.
I don't have any skin in that game, but
I was gonna say, what a sellout. But she says, she once laid claim to rule Mandalore, but based purely on blood and the sword you now possess. But it was gifted to her and not won by Creed. Bo-Katan Kryze was born of a mighty house, but they lost sight of the way. Her rule ended in tragedy. They lost their way, and we lost our world. So she definitely places the blame solely at the feet of Bo-Katan for, I guess, accepting the weapon that she should have won in combat, that just seems like so irrational, but it makes sense given this group.
But again, I think it's a broader picture of that was how lost the Mandalorian people were, or the people of Mandalore rather were, to where that type of gift would be accepted, because the only way you even get to that point is if everybody's, and clearly they weren't happy with how Mandalore is being run anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think Bo-Katan is just the fall guy, basically.
Yeah, right.
Because
he's the poster child for what went wrong.
Right. Yeah. She accepted the weapon, and then really, really bad stuff happened. But I think it was just it was an example of the broader picture going on and the broader problems, and why these groups were out of Mandalore, why they moved out, why they lived on Concordia or wherever else they were. And that's why they were chased out too, and ostracized in some ways.
Yep. She pours this liquid in here.
Yeah, I don't know what that
which
is.
They don't explain, but
I thought that was like the cooling bath, like that they.
Yeah, no, I think that's what it was. To kind of as they're sitting there forging whatever they're or melting it down and forging.
Yeah, it's just something I've heard her do while she tells stories.
Yeah, right. It looks really cool visually. I think this is the part where people were saying, like right here, this scene where she turns around slowly with that heated spear, and people were thinking she was just going to impale him, Vlad the Impaler style, but didn't happen. And then finally we get this, which, this was just really good stuff here.
Yeah.
Just being able to finally, and as they started to go into flashback, I was like, oh my God, yes, we're going to see this, because we wanted, ever since they, said the Night of 1,000 Tears and the Purge, and, we kind of speculated and about what all that was, and I think we were 100% right, although it wasn't that hard to figure out.
Right.
But yeah, we definitely got to see some really cool stuff. In fact, we got to see this. I posted this. I'm just going to make it really quick.
Yeah,
but look at that. That's
yeah, right.
it's the Batman's. It's the what is it? The Batwing from.
Yep.
No,
Tim
maybe.
Burton. Yeah.
I don't know if it was intentional or not, but that's the first thing.
I had the exact same thought too.
Yeah. Qui-Gon Jinn said she was pouring one out for her homies. Yeah, maybe she was. Who knows what was in that? I had in the notes. It literally says is she spiking the punch? So I'm kind of in that same realm. But okay, so back to this thing, and it looks like they're just dropping. Like, I love that you said the TIE bombers are finally done something, because we don't, outside of Rebels, I can't remember. Was it Clone Wars too? No, I think it was Rebels that we finally got to see them do something. But even then was kind of eh. But yeah, here they are. I mean, they bombed the crap out of them. This is like, Germany all over again during World War II. It's just tons and tons of what look to be nuclear bombs or some atomic bombs of some sort that are just laying waste to it, right? This is that, what was the word they used in last season in The Mandalorian when they were talking about Mandalore? There was a term they used, and I forget now. So somebody will remind me or tell me how stupid I am. But yeah, I mean, this is really devastating stuff, no pun intended. This was really cool seeing the fleet of them like this. I mean, they literally look like bats in the sky, and if you watch closely, you can see the bombs coming down.
And that was the where I pulled the tears out of. Yeah.
And then here, and you can't see it because I've got it all. It's all washed out from the screenshot I took.
Bodies and helmets and
yes, there's Mandalorian helmets all kind of scattered in the front here in the foreground. You can see the TIE bombers up here, and that's Sundari. That's the capital of Mandalore, and we saw this in Rebels. There's actually 2 episodes directly, I think, and then even in Clone Wars as well. Yeah. So this is the capital of Mandalore, and it's gone. Like, I don't have. Oh, here you go. Yeah, I mean it's gone. Yeah. There's no more.
There's nothing left.
No more capital of Sundari at this point, which was really cool. And then we get this, which
the
I know.
K2s,
yeah, the K2s are out there. This also feels like it's very. We talked about the Terminator. We were talking about that in Discord, which I think this is exactly what they were doing. I mean, there's just so many. In Terminator, you have the Terminator droids.
This was very Terminator right here.
Yes, like, and then you had the drones in the sky during that shot. I want to go back and see if there's a shot that's very similar to this that they kind of just paid an homage to. Yeah, technically speaking.
But so we go back to what the armor was saying about the Empire. But this is why the Empire had the type of clout they did, and the type of what's the word? I don't know. This is why people thought they were so big and bad. Right, because they could do this type of thing, and yeah, they were here for only a minute, but I mean, this is the kind of damage that they were doing. They exploded an entire planet, they annihilated another one to where it cracked and was barely inhabitable. It's just or multiple planets that were cracked and barely inhabitable, and so I mean, this is what they were capable of. This is why they left such a lasting impression on the galaxy,
right?
And why they still persist to even this day, even though it's only a few years after the fall of the Empire. And she gets that, but at the same time, she seems to disrespect that pretty quickly. And disrespect probably the wrong word, but kind of discard that thought, that notion pretty quickly.
Right. And she's proud of the Mandalorian heritage and how long they've been around and how they've been able to survive. But and there's probably pride that's hurt too, because like I said, I mean, for all that, as cool as she says, 10,000 years. Well, yeah, guess what? You don't have a home planet anymore.
Yeah. What's really odd is she didn't go further with all of that statement of, they paid for their lack of faith, right? Effectively, and the only ones left are the true believers. She could keep going down that line and really get fanatical, but
for sure. They're the children of the watch, and how much cooler they are, how much better they are.
I was not prepared for this scene though, just how devastating it actually was.
Yeah, and
a TV show like this was really epic to see.
There's so I can't remember in Legends whether or not at this point. I mean, Palpatine had multiple Death Stars, if I remember, and you correct me if I'm wrong, and you or anybody else here, but if I remember correctly, he had multiple Death Stars in the works, right? I don't think it wasn't just one. I think when the first one was out there, he was already working on a second and a third, right? Because just the lead time it would take to build these things out. Right. So I don't know that he had a Death Star around this time and anywhere near completion. Maybe, even if it was at the level of where we saw the first Death Star in Rogue One, right? And when they kind of did the test firings and stuff.
Mhm.
But I guess the question I was going to ask you is, to me, it seems like strategically they went through and bombed the crap out of it from the outside, because they're not going to go blow Mandalore up, because it's got a rich resource in Mandalore, in Beskar, right? Underneath it. So they don't want to blow it up, but they are going to lay this thing to waste so that no one can live here, right? It's inhabitable at this point.
Yeah.
Although
easier to scrape it off the surface than to and try to go collect it in space.
Exactly. Yep. So that said, and we probably should touch on this because I don't know if it's here or a little bit later, but just talk. I know we'll talk about it when we come back to the when he's trying to purify himself or whatever that is that he talks about. So
atone.
Yeah, atone. Sorry, thank you. Okay, so we get into, and I'll kind of skip through some of this stuff here because I know we've been kind of laboring on this stuff, but this is again really the dense part of it. More montages, which give me a montage every 5 minutes. I'm all down for it. But a lot of speculation, right? He says that he wants, hey, what do you want to make? I want to make some armor, or I want to make something for the foundlings. And she's like, this is the way. Like, cool, yeah, I like it. He's like a very specific foundling, and we all know who that is. But the key takeaway for me from that is he definitely feels that Grogu is part of his clan, And,
right.
And she said, you're a clan of two, right? So in his mind, yeah, he's out with Luke and he's learning to be a Jedi, or trying to control his powers or whatever they're trying to do it there. But in his head, he seems to have it in his mind that he's getting Grogu back, and this is kind of evident for me especially when we get to the cockpit and we get the empty droid unit there, compartment. Like, we all know who's going in that thing,
right?
So I don't know. How do you feel about that? Because I know we've gone back and forth. We've talked about this many times on this show about whether or not we like the fact that it's Grogu or Mandalore or Din. Do we want them separated? Do we want them together? I just keep coming back to it. It's like, this is the story, and whether or not you like it or not, this is where his head's at. This is where Favreau's going with the writing. But do you see it turning out a different way?
No, I think it's more of he's not saying it outwardly, at least, that he wants Grogu to come back with him. He wants to check on him, make sure he's safe, and again, give him the opportunity to come back, and I guess show him that he is welcome back. And so I think Din would not turn it away if Grogu was interested and he wanted to come back with Din and then rejoin the clan or the coverts or whatever you want to call it, and live the life of a foundling. And so I think that's likely where we're going back to. It makes sense that they're tied at the hip, father-son type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and again, where do you want the heart of your season 3 or that to go? And that's a really easy place to go back to. I would hope we have some time without Grogu just to see how things go, kind of like this, right? These are really good stories within all of this too. And why do we have to get right back to the Grogu stuff? But I think it's inevitable, though, at some point that Grogu will be back involved. Now, whether he stays with Din, I think, is another story.
Yeah,
where I think it's not likely to happen. But will they be reunited and spend some time together? I think that's without question, that's going to happen.
Yeah, Fernando says maybe Mando will learn the ways of the Force. That's a good question, or good theory, and I think we're going to talk about that towards the end of the show. If not, we'll do a Patreon show about it, because I do want to get into speculating.
Well, we had a great line in here about the Force, right? To learn the ways of the Force, they have to forego attachment, and then Din comes back with, that's the opposite of our creed.
Mm-hmm.
Where they preach loyalty and solidarity, right? So health in numbers as a covert, as a family, whereas it's a misinterpretation of the Jedi, though, I think, in the ways of what the Jedi teachings are. But I think it's also a representation of how strayed the Jedi got from that same kind of thought as well, to where no attachment doesn't mean forbid any kind of personal interaction or having a friend and that type of thing, right?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm glad you said that, because I actually wrote that down. I had said, are these really opposites? So, because I didn't, and I like what you said. It sounds like they don't really, they took forego attachments almost to the extreme, right?
Yeah.
And when he says that it's the opposite, that the Mandos believe in loyalty and solidarity, I don't know, you can make an argument that Jedi believe in that. I mean,
right,
at their core.
Yeah,
So maybe it's just
they have an order. I mean,
yeah, right.
and they have a Padawan and a master as well, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
clearly there are relationships and groups that's important. I mean, there's still a union, effectively. So
Yeah, right. Union. That's a good way of putting it. Okay. All right. Let's.
but yeah, he makes all these little chain links.
Yeah.
Maybe
I mean,
Grogu's got a lot of piercings we just don't know about yet.
no, it's not it.
Oh, okay.
I know people were saying it's like a necklace, and it's not. I mean, I don't think it's a necklace because he says I want armor made. I'd be really pissed if the armor turns around and hands over a necklace, and he's like, "Hey, wait a second, what is this? I didn't ask for a necklace. I wanted."
Seven, I were
armor.
talking. It's going to be really cool, like wallet chain. He's gonna,
Oh yeah,
like,
that way nobody can take his wallet.
Well, yeah, that for his like angsty teenage years that are coming when he's like 90 or 95 years old.
Yeah, run around Doc Martens and
That's right.
flannel. Yeah. So yeah, it's chainmail. I guess that's probably the more obvious thing here. I mean, there's also ring mail. Not to get really D&D on you, but there's also ring mail, which is very similar. And not to get really technical here, but there's a reason why people wore plate mail versus chain mail versus scale mail versus ring mail, right? They had their benefits. And if he's going with something like chain or ring mail, it's because it offers better protection at slash attacks. So people slashing at them. Pokey stuff, not so much, right? They can kind of poke through it, but slash attacks seems to be kind of the thing. So I don't know if this is kind of like a Jedi thing or protecting against. I don't know what they're trying to protect him from, but either way, it's going to be some kind of mail. I was assuming some kind of little shirt or maybe some matching shorts. I don't know what's going to happen.
Beanie.
Like a little beanie. Oh, that'd be cool. Like a chainmail beanie. There you go. Yeah.
That'd be pretty wicked.
So I guess we'll get to see that. It's going to, I mean, people are going to freak out when they finally see it and they're like, oh, there it is.
Yeah. He comes out with like a stern look on his face.
Maybe it's a kilt. Wouldn't that be cool?
Kilt. I like how the wrap that she does actually looks like, Grogu's head.
Yeah.
Especially when he's on the transport.
Yep. Sorry. Let's go to the chat. What do we got for his Jinko jeans? That's a
throwback.
That's a throwback. Yeah. There was a meme that was floating around on the internet just a couple days ago with Jinko jeans. It was Jango Fett, but it was like Jinko Fett or something like that. And then there's Lauren with the Mithril shirt. So once again with the Lord of the Rings references. But yeah, I did like that she conveniently tied that to look like his head. You can kind of see a better picture of it right here.
Or if you're a Harry Potter fan, it looks like what are the little Quidditch ball things?
Yeah, Quidditch. Oh, the snitch.
Snitch.
Stitch,
there you go.
Snitch. I forget now.
Yeah, whatever.
I read the book like 20 years ago. Okay, so let's see. We get to the training portion of it, and more exterior shots. I thought this was really cool. And then we get to see the kind of the underbelly here. Again, just these establishing shots. They don't have to do this. We already know they're there, but it adds more to it, right? I really enjoyed the fact that they were sitting here training and going through like what language were they speaking? What's the official language for Mandalore? Mandoa, yeah. Which is what they sounded like they were saying. I could be wrong on that, but
it was like Tan, Suil. I was reading the subtitles.
Oh, good. Oh, I was like, wow, that's pretty good, dude. Did you have that all memorized? So, but yeah, no handrails.
I really watched this episode like 8 times. So,
no handrails, no guards.
Well, you got to have room to swing.
Now she's pretty gutsy, right? She has no jetpack on, so but he's fine. And we got to see that too when he takes a step over the side, and the weight of the blade takes him over the edge. If you watch carefully, right, it just keeps getting heavier and heavier for him. And we'll talk about that here. I think we're finally going to get around to kind of talking about it. But she mentions that he's getting frustrated because it's so freaking heavy to wield, and he thinks
fighting the blade.
Yeah, she keeps saying you're fighting the blade, right? And then that if you continue to fight the blade, it's just going to win. That you can't control. She says,
it was really interesting. You're weak. You're weaker than the blade. Is the Darksaber is stronger than you are?
Yeah, he says you cannot control with his strength. And then she mentions that his mind is distracted. He needs to focus, and he says, "I am focused." And she says, "The blade says otherwise," which I thought was kind of funny.
I love her little retorts. They're so perfectly timed and delivered.
Yep. So I want to talk quickly about the blade itself and the heaviness and where all this is kind of coming from. So if you've not had a chance, if you really want to know more about the Darksaber, go watch Season 3, Trials of the Darksaber from Star Wars Rebels. There's a lot of information packed into that one. It's a very dense episode, especially it gets into a lot of the lore. That's where we get the the Tar Vizsla animation that we've probably seen before. That's at the very beginning, and we get to see Sabine train with the Darksaber. And to be clear, she's trained by two people, actually. I know people will say, oh, it's Kanan who trains her, and that's true. Kanan is kind of the lead mentor, but it's actually Ezra that walks her through all the initial steps. He's the one that's teaching her all the moves and the steps and everything. And then, he's reluctant to give her the Darksaber, and eventually she does. And when they start training with it, she starts making a lot of the same comments about it being very heavy. And when she asks, I guess, I don't remember if she asks or Kanan just offers the knowledge, he tells her, she says, it's heavier than I thought. And what he says is, energy constantly flows through the crystal. You're not fighting with a simple blade as much as you are directing a current of power. Your thoughts, your actions, they become energy. They flow through the crystal as well and become a part of the blade. So, and there's a part in there too, there's another piece, and I don't have the exact verbiage, but I think he's talking to Hera. And he mentions that, Hera makes a comment about maybe she's not being able to wield the blade because she's not force sensitive. And Kanan says the force is in everybody. It flows through everyone. So all that to say, I don't know that she's you don't have to be force sensitive to wield this thing, but there seems to be some kind of connection to the force. Definitely. Now, how it manifests, I think, is different from somebody who's force sensitive and somebody who's not, but it does sound like somebody who's just an average person that is not force sensitive can somehow at least tap into it in some way to kind of help guide this sword, which makes sense, right? If you're a Mandalore and you're making this lightsaber, well, of course, he was a Jedi too, but in order for it to be wielded by a Mandalore, they've got to be able to tap into that in some way. At some level, they have to be able to channel their thoughts, like Kanan says, their thoughts, their actions into energy, which then flow into the crystal that allows that blade to become lighter. And so you're not fighting that, you start fighting your opponent.
Right. Oh, is that a pause? Okay.
Yeah, let's pause.
Yeah. No, yeah. And it's one of those things of, is this a good thing? So we talk about, light and dark. If you're supposed to give yourself over to a weapon, and is it more of and this is something I was going to ask you actually, is it more of, okay, I need to create a bond with the weapon in some kind of way? Or is it that I really do have to let it guide and control things? I mean, there's a bit of a difference, right? Even with Luke's interpretation of the Force, right? It controls my actions? Yes, but it also obeys your commands, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so does the Darksaber obey commands as well? Or is it really, no, you have to give into it? And I think we had talked about when we did when the Darksaber first appeared, we had talked, and I thought I remembered somewhere that there was some amount of power or something that you gain from the Darksaber, or it emanates something, right? And I've gone back to try to find that, and I cannot find it anywhere. But it just kind of got me thinking about that again. Is there something more to it, to your point? Maybe not it could be the Force. It's just a different variation of how it's interpreted. And which would make a lot of sense that, again, there's so many similarities between the Mandalorian and Jedi cultures that there's just a different way of explaining the same type of things that they don't understand, even from Tar Vizsla's days.
Yeah. So here's another thing that I was thinking about too. Like, it feels like there's an inherent problem in the system that they've created about if you get the Darksaber, if you win the Darksaber in combat, then you become the leader.
Right.
You have to, it's like a chicken and egg. You got to learn to be able to control the Darksaber first, right? But if you just take control of it, you don't know how to wield it. It takes time. So if it were me, unless there's some kind of bylaw here or some law that I'm not aware of, the best time to attack somebody and take it from it is when they've just won it, because they have not learned how to use the Darksaber, right? So that's when they're most vulnerable. You don't want to give them any time. I'm just telling you, for anybody out there that's wanting to take over and learn, take the Darksaber from somebody, that's your opportunity to get in there while it's just been handed over, because that's when they're going to be the most vulnerable, because they don't know how to use it just yet.
Right. Yep.
There you go.
Well, and that's what we saw from Paz, is that even when they start when he challenges Din to the duel, it seemed like it was more of Din's pride getting in the way of where he accepted this duel, where it was really stupid, why he would do this right away, especially after getting his ass kicked by the armorer.
Well, speaking of which, I have that up right now. I did love that, where she bonked him on the head, then grabbed his helmet like a kid with the tongs there.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
She's like holding him there like a little punk snot bros brat. focus kind of thing. So she's clearly well adept at fighting, which I can't wait to see. I hope we get to see her fight other people and alongside Mando and Boba and right, my Albert's headcanon kind of theory stuff.
All right.
But yeah, this is a really cool moment too, because this is we saw this with the spear when he was fighting Moff Gideon and how it started to heat up, kind of like superheat when it was touching the dark saber. And so I really wonder, like, at some point, can it go through Beskar? Because it looks like it's getting red, and I'm no smith, but
yeah, red usually means it's
about to
go. Getting close to a melting point.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's get into the duel.
That's
next.
a good point. Now I'm trying to remember Moff Gideon fighting with the dark saber now.
Yeah, he didn't seem like he struggled.
Right.
And I was thinking about that. Okay, so who all? Now you get me all excited here. So I started thinking about, okay, who all had and wielded the dark saber? Sabine certainly had a problem with it. Yeah. Pre Vizsla had no problem whatsoever. Like, he was wielding that thing. I mean, he got in some pretty good shots on Darth Maul, right?
Right.
Maul eventually killed him because he's a better fighter. But he
didn't have any issue either.
Yeah. No. Well, and so I kind of excuse that one as, okay, well, he's Force sensitive and he's a part of the. I mean, he's probably using the Force and it's compensating for whatever. But we haven't really seen Bo-Katan. The only thing she does is kind of, I think she holds it up. I think whatever at the end of Rebels.
Right.
Ezra didn't have a problem wielding it either, but again, he's Force sensitive. So I don't know. It is interesting that Gideon was able to kind of wield it that way, and we don't know who else has owned this thing since Maul lost it at some point. But the way I would chalk it up is, it's not one of these things where it's like Mjolnir, where you have to be like, what do they use?
Worthy.
Yeah, you got to be worthy, right? I don't know if it's worthy so much as you just got to be able to focus and use
some sort of got to tap into some sort of connection with it.
Yeah, like the energy he talks about. Yeah, you got to be able to convert that energy, and I think it's agnostic of whether or not you're good or bad. Anybody can wield this thing. It's just a matter of focusing the right way. But what do I know? So let's get into this. Let's talk about the duel here, because this is where he kind of comes in.
Maybe it's in the wrong hands.
Yeah, a real socialite this guy is. Maybe Darksaber belongs in someone else's hands, and we'll cut to the chase. I mean, Mando basically, she asks him, like, dude, are you ready to do this? He says, yes, I accept. And she just lets him fight. Now, here's where I was talking about, like, okay, I've got all three of them up on the screen. This is all that's left of their clan. And she somehow allows this to happen. Like, it just seems foolhardy, or like, maybe they're just so, what are you going to tell me?
Well, they did this in the armorer's lair before, though, right?
Yeah, but there was more of them.
But it's their culture. This is the way they settle things. When there is a challenge, and Risk was saying this, Mandos don't deny a duel. I don't know what would happen if they said no. Maybe tomorrow. Give me some time. But it's just
what about let's just get up to 10? Can we just get to 10 people first, and then you can go kill each other?
But she didn't let them kill each other the first time. Right.
That's true. She did stop it before it got out of hand.
And so I think it was one of those things too, where she like, okay, you got to do it. You do your thing, but it will stop once it gets to a certain point. And that's where I kind of took. I knew you were going to have a problem with this, but I was watching. I was like, oh, Albert's going to go off on this one. But no, I think it's that. I think that she was going to stop it before any serious or permanent damage got done. And that's why she stopped Din when he finally started fighting his own way with just the vibra knife, and just started picking Paz apart.
Yeah. I get it. I mean, I'm half kind of kidding, but at the same time, I'm just too pragmatic when it comes to like, okay, yeah, there's a time and place for everything, right? And I understand being religious and being a devout and being a follower, but there's only 3 of you. Let's just pause. Can we just let's just take 5?
Albert.
Start breeding and bringing in foundlings, and then we can talk about who's going to rule over the. Because he's going to win the Darksaber, allegedly killing Mando. So now is he ruling over her? It's the rule of 2 all over again.
Albert.
Yes, I'm sorry.
4 words I want you to repeat after me.
Are we live? I'm sorry,
yes.
I shouldn't be doing this, but yeah, go ahead.
This is the way.
This is the way. Is that 4 words? This is the way. Yeah. Okay. I'll take
it. That's what it's all about, man. This is the way.
I'm just saying they should have waited. That's all.
Just telling you what the way is.
Okay, they get to the battle and they take the jetpacks off. Like, If I don't have enough anxiety already that the fact that they have no railings here, they take the packs off, which was their only safety device here.
Yeah, this was definitely a slight problem in my deductions here of what they were going to get away with.
Mm-hmm. They're so they take the jetpacks off. It's almost kind of like this, is almost like a Pistols at Dawn kind of thing. He had this in season 1, didn't he? That little shield thing. I could have sworn he had that. I need to go back. I didn't get a chance to go back and watch, but he's got his vibro blade there as well. And then of course he busts that out like, haha, look what I have, kind of thing. Yeah. Pretty good battle. I enjoyed it.
I had a problem with this battle actually when Paz, I think, stabs him between the armor on his shoulder.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
But it's floating around like the way they did you go watch it and just pay attention to it, and it's the effects were not good with the fiber knife.
Oh, really?
It just didn't work. Yeah, it didn't even look like it was even inside of him, and it was just kind of flapping around a little bit. It just go watch it a little more closely next time, and it's weird.
There's the line in here where he says, "Fate has brought this blade back into my clan, and now fate will end yours." I thought that was good. It was cool here. You can see it visually, like on the screen. I've got a screenshot up right now of Paz holding the Darksaber, and he's like really struggling. This is when he finally takes it back from Mando, and he's having a hard time too wielding this thing. Right. And it's just like scraping on the ground, and Mando kind of uses this to his advantage to kind of take it back from him, or at least win the battle.
Meanwhile, the armor's like children.
No, yeah, I'm just sour about that. Right. Yeah, she seems to be all kinds of okay with them killing each other here.
Yeah,
I mean, if she was going to stop it, she really didn't.
No, it could have gotten really bad, but she. Sorry, blocking people here live that are spamming the chat.
Oh yeah, we're playing whack-a-mole as we're doing a show.
Yeah, awesome. Sorry, folks.
But yeah, so I guess I can't remember. Did she stop the fight?
Yes, she's like, enough.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right, that's fair.
Yeah, he started taking out Paz at the backs of the knees, the Achilles, everything, and has the knife to his throat. She tells it it's enough.
All right, and then we get the big moment here. Have you ever removed your helmet? Has it been removed by others? Of course, Paz says no.
I don't know why this caught me off guard. Like when she said it, I was like, "Oh snap!" Like
we knew it was going to come up.
I know. Well, I know. And as soon as I was surprised, I was like, "That was stupid, Chris," because I know that in the first episode, when they did this the first time, she asked these same series of questions, right? So it was just straight out of the book, and I just totally space cadeted on it. But I was like, "Oh man, things are different now, though."
Yeah. Well, and I meant, yeah, you're right. This is kind of it's part of the tradition, the ritual, I guess, or whatever, the ceremony, whatever you want to call this thing.
Yeah.
I wondered if he was going to tell the truth.
I was I mean, and Lauren just said that she wishes he would have just lied. I was not sure what he was doing, but I was glad he told the truth. I think that was that's what they are. You have to just accept your decisions.
Yeah. You know? Well, he is, or he's a man of his word, noble man, bigger person.
Well, I think in general, they try to be in their own way. Now, whether or not that's stupid or not is completely beside the point.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, and he says, yeah, I have. Twice. Ooh, what do you think about that?
You are Mandalorian no more.
Yeah, and I know people have taken that very literally. I wouldn't take that literally. I think he definitely is still a Mandalorian. He's just not a Mandalorian in her eyes, and by the creed that they follow, he's no longer a Mandalorian. I think that's what she's saying here.
Yeah. A lot of people were surprised that she let him walk out with his armor, but and something that I took from that was, of course, he's begging for forgiveness, and how can he atone?
Yeah.
Right. And you've probably got the exact quote in there about what she says. You have to go to the, maybe you just read that.
It says, one may only be redeemed in the living waters beneath the mines of Mandalore, is what she says.
Yeah, living waters. Of course, Den's like, but Mandalore is a wasteland. It's probably completely, if it's not destroyed, it's much more difficult to get to. And she's like, this is the
way. Mic drop.
I know, right? It's like, she just gave him the ultimate finger, basically.
Sorry, dude. I'll tell you.
Yeah, you should have taken your helmet off, dummy.
Play stupid game, win a stupid prize.
Right. But I think that was why he was allowed to keep the armor. I didn't view that as a disconnect of like, okay, well, if you're going to atone, then you should still be able to do it as you normally would. I know some people are like, no, you have to be stripped and then you have to go and, prove your worth all over again and start from the bottom. But then again, that doesn't seem to be how the Mandalorians work.
No. Let's talk about the atonement just quickly. I think this is part of it. Like I've been speculating that they're going to go back to Mandalore ever since season 1. At some point, they would go back to Mandalore. We found out last season that it's in a pretty bad state. We got to see it in this episode. The theories that are kind of brewing is that there are Mandalorians still on Mandalore. I think they're again living underground. They're this whole living waters thing is probably still out there.
Mm-hmm. Might house a certain mythological creature.
Yeah, the mythosaurs could still be around underground as well. I mean, the Empire bombed the crap out of the top, but I mean, who's to say that those guys aren't just living all kinds of their best life underneath there? Plus, she says that they were scattered to the 4 winds, right? Going back to the prophecy that the Mandalores would be scattered to the 4 winds, meaning that they left. They were scattered to different areas, and we know that was the case because of Bo-Katan, and we had all the sects that were living on Concordia on the moon, which they were. We didn't even talk about this, but she mentioned that had they not been on Concordia, they would have been part of this whole destruction as well. So that's kind of, she sees that as like, this is why we're the right people and we're the way, because we were protected and we knew better. I think she's going to say that here in a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's why you're exactly right on the money. That's why they were spared.
Yep.
Is because they followed the true path and the others paid for their sins.
This is very
it's very religious.
Yeah. Especially like you're talking about Mormonism and how they believe that there's a true, there's all kinds of churches out there, but Mormons believe that there is the true church and that's their church because of the things that they've done. And they're not unique in that aspect, right? There's a lot of other religions that feel that same way, but this is very similar in the sense here that they feel like they got it right? Look at us. We're only 3.
Right.
But we're the right ones.
We're coming back strong.
We're the righteous. Anyways. Okay, so I think all that's going to play out. Again, I think this is all signaling of things to expect, things that we're going to see in later episodes, season 3, season 4, wherever that maybe go. I think the mines are all still intact, by the way, as well. So that bodes well for a lot of different things when you think about the rebirth and rebuilding of Mandalore, knowing that they've got Beskar still down there somewhere.
Yeah. So we're an hour and 47 minutes into the show, and I'm pretty sure we're only about 15 minutes into the episode at most.
Maybe, but we've gotten through the heavy. Like when we get to
this is the heavy lifting part. Yeah,
when we get to like the Peli Motto and all the 80s montages and rebuilding the Camaro, the 69 Camaro, that stuff's going to be like, we'll go through that really quick here. I thought it was interesting too. Like she doesn't even look at him, like doesn't even acknowledge him as she walks by. Yeah,
turn her back and don't look back.
Laters. Okay, so he heads out and
man, he has to ride public transportation. Man,
okay.
how the mighty have fallen. Same transport though that we saw in Mos Espa.
But did he have to? Like, if I'm Mando,
he gets to. Maybe that's more. He doesn't have to. He gets to.
Well, if I'm Mando, why? Like the idea of a Mandalorian, weapons are my religion. I'm going to go take Southwest Airlines, fly coach. And I'm going to unload all my weapons into a container that I have no idea what they're going to do with. Somebody could take it, steal it. I mean, he's already got that. We see that here. Why would he not? I mean, he doesn't have a shortage of money. So why would he not just get a pilot? Something. Yeah, somebody to fly him out there. So I started thinking, okay, well, maybe they're trying to wield in the Halcyon and, Star Cruise and stuff like that. Wow. I thought, okay, maybe it's a marketing thing. Well, I'm trying to make sense of why he would go fly on a commercial airline.
Right.
Or Starship or whatever.
I think it was just a reminder that there's no Razor Crest.
Maybe.
Sad face.
All right. Well, yeah, he hits the metal detectors and we get this whole thing. And this was comical. I like the music too. Like it changed, the tone of it changed. It was a funny take on the main theme.
Can we pause on music real fast pause and talk? The music in this episode, while it was really good at times, was really inconsistent for me, which I think has been a bit of a criticism for the show in general for the whole season. But the music was just I liked it overall, but it was just still very all over the place. Did you get that feeling, or did you really feel it seemed more apparent to me this episode, maybe because I was so much more familiar with the Mandalorian tones and the way that that music kind of feels in the vibe. So when there was a shift, it felt very stark.
Mm. I would say yes, but it felt like it was a very like this episode had bits and pieces of music from like Mandalore. There was Book of Boba Fett. He was pulling stuff back from the original trilogy. There's some Phantom Menace tones that were in there, or episode 1 stuff that was going on. So it just felt like because of the way the episode was written and because it had all these references and we were going back to Grogu. Yeah, it felt like a hodgepodge of stuff, right? A very eclectic collection of music. It wasn't very consistent. Whereas, you go back to the Book of Boba Fett, any one of those episodes, it's pretty straightforward all the way through because we're just dealing with that storyline. And this was really kind of dealing with a lot of different things. Right. That's kind of how I saw it. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
So I like how he had to get rid of his ripcord, but they still let him take his jetpack on the ship.
Well, that's not a weapon.
Well, it could be his death if it's poked at the wrong way.
Oh yeah, that's true. But yeah, I did like all this stuff here. I took another. So the next screenshot I have is way out of order, but there was a reason why I took this screenshot. So I'm showing now a picture of Peli Motto in the N1 Starfighter, which happens a little bit later. We're coming up to it, but I wanted to get a close up on those markings because I wanted to see if those were the markings of Anakin's N1 Starfighter, and they are not. They are definitely not the same one. In fact, I went through frame by frame of episode 1 and looked at, and it's really hard. There's only like one, maybe 2 other shots where you can see the markings on the sides of the Starfighters, and they don't match. One of them is too blurry to tell. Honestly, I can't tell whether it is or not. But it does not look like this is any kind of like, oh, that was this person's ship. It just seems like an N1 that they picked up from somewhere. So,
right.
Sorry, I know that's out of order, but that's how I took the picture. Here's the one that was real blurry. You can see it there. So, all right. Well, now
I'm glad they didn't make that an Easter egg. By the way, well, it would have been would have been a good Easter egg, but just a little too.
Oh, you're glad they didn't make that. Like it wasn't.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you there. Okay. He gets back to Mos Eisley, gets all his weapons back. He goes over to Peli Motto, and this is where we find out Peli Motto had actually contacted him because she said, "I've got a replacement Razor Crest a replacement for the Razor Crest for you."
No, I have a replacement for a Razor Crest.
Is it for?
Yeah. So if you read this up, if you listen real closely, but you read the subtitles, you really point out he continues to call it the Razor Crest, and she keeps calling it a Razor Crest.
Yeah.
And it's not until the very last time he mentions Razor Crest that he says a Razor Crest. But it's subtle, but it's very different. It tells you how they view the Razor Crest differently. And they were both proper nouns, though, so that part subtitles wasn't a thing. But it was telling though how he kept calling it the, and she was like a.
Yeah, the devil's in the details, I guess. There.
Yeah. But I think intentional, like with the writing. I don't think that was not intentional.
I'm missing some pictures here.
Yeah, I was about to say, you jumped like right into the montage.
I did. I'm trying to see if these got out of order, so I'm going to apologize right now. But yeah, we skipped over him in that little picture or him flying next to. Yeah, this is a little bit later.
And you're making me motion sick just seeing all.
Is it really? Close your eyes, Jonesy, because I'm fast forwarding or I'm rewinding now at this point. So, but I mean, we can talk about it. I mean, there really wasn't a whole lot going on there. I mean, it was. He made that comment about I know everything that's in there, right? With the trunk that he put all his stuff in. We get that little girl, the little Rhodian girl that kind of pops up over the seat.
Yeah, like a little kid.
And that always happens if you're on a flight. Some kid always is kind of there, and then they cough and sneeze on you, which is gross. But they're. It's funny because he sees that child, and that child's green, and I think that was kind of it's a nice segue into him looking down at that point, right? They start playing the Grogu music, which I really love. Like, I love that whole piece. Like, I want to hear it longer than these little 15-second, 20-second snippets that we get. But, he's looking down at that bundle, and he's missing him, right? We've talked about it. This is kind of like his son. He's kind of like the dad, right? I think it's more than just wanting to see him, though. I know he says that. I think he wants to check in on him, genuinely, sincerely wants to check in on him. But
misses him, yeah.
Yeah, he misses him. He wants to see his kid. And this is the same girl that shows up a little bit later. That's very tropey as well.
Yeah.
I think Superman is an example, I think, where I remember seeing that. But yeah, he's looking at his little, quote, bundle of joy there once again. I don't have that picture up here or whatever. But okay, so he gets back. He lands. The Starliner is, or the droid gives him all his stuff back. I thought for sure he was going to lose a lightsaber. Like, I thought that was going to go missing, and that was going to be the next quest to go find out who the heck stole his stuff. But
yeah, so no, it's just comic relief.
Yeah.
You know what was really interesting though is that this episode felt so much longer than every other episode, but it didn't feel slow. I mean, did you notice that? Like it felt like it just felt like it was a really full hour. I didn't see what the actual runtime was on it.
Like 51 minutes.
Okay,
it's probably a little bit less because
it was a little bit longer than most of the other ones, and so but it actually felt like it, but it didn't. It felt like we had a lot done. It was just
they covered a lot.
Yeah, and the reason why I mention it here is because this is when it kind of switches over from we had kind of action oriented up front, and then we get into more of a methodical burn here as we go for a while through the talking about the ship and even just the flying of the ship around. While it was cool, it was still not a lot of things happening, except just putting it through its paces.
Yeah. So he gets to Mos Eisley, heads over to Pelimado. We get to see the little droid, the BD unit, which I have a better picture of a little bit later. Again, I apologize. I don't know what these. I know I took them. I just don't know where they are.
They posted a cute little meme on our Twitter earlier. We just doing his little dance.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, BD is from the Jedi Fallen Order game.
Yeah.
He's on. What's his name? Kale Kestis.
Yeah, it's Kale's droid. I don't know for sure. I don't think it's been confirmed, but I don't think it's BD1. I think it's BD1 was the name of that droid. I think it's a BD unit.
It's a BD unit, right?
Which was cool. Which I love the fact. Someone said it earlier, and I know people have talked about it, but this episode also had a lot of everything. Like you had references to movies, TV shows, video games. I mean, they've really kind of opening the gates here and setting a precedence for what we can expect now going forward in Star Wars storytelling, which is awesome. But yeah, I think that's the first thing we see, and everybody went, oh, when that happens. And then we had that whole Pelimado scene with was that a Womp Rat that was kind of like taking her and she fell on the ground and was getting pulled away, or what was that? Just kind of like,
I don't think it was a Womp Rat. I don't know what it was though.
It was whatever it was. She was going to eat it because she tells the droids, go get that thing before it gets real gamey. It's like, oh, that's disgusting. You're going to go eat that? But yeah, Mando comes in. She says, what an entrance, which, yeah.
Right, yeah.
What he's known for. There was a line there too where she says, did you bring the cash? And I saw people a little bit upset, or at least talking about whether or not that felt un-Star Warsy, if you will. And I can't remember ever it coming up. I don't remember ever anybody using the word cash in Star Wars except Robot Chicken. But
usually it's credits, yeah. But
any problem with that?
I would have preferred creds or something like that. Something short if you wanted to do that. But I don't care. I mean, money is money. She said money too later on, and I think some people had problem with just saying money. But
yeah, that's not my Star. I mean, I love Star Wars, and I'll nitpick that. I can definitely see that stuff, but that's the stuff that's just kind of like, whatever. I don't really care.
It was noticeable though. I'll give them that though. It was noticeable, and does it pull you out? Yeah, maybe a little bit, but I'm not going to go down that hill. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. She has another couple. I'm kind of just running through some of her one-liners here, and there was a lot of them. I didn't even write them all down because it was just like rapid fire succession there. But she mentioned about Grogu and putting him in a petting zoo, which I thought that's horrible. Like that was why she was so concerned that she let him go back. It wasn't because she thought he needed her care or his care or she loved him or anything like that. It's like, no, we could have made money on that guy.
Well, she would have cared for him too. You could take care of your pets, and it's like running the circus. It's
like rabbits. You take care of them, then you eat them. Okay, she takes him over to a starfighter.
That is not what happens.
She takes him over to the starfighter. It's an N1 starfighter. I was like, and to credit where credit's due, if you follow Jason Ward, although he's kind of had a little bit of a controversial past, but Jason Ward from MakingStarWars.net had actually broke this leak, or I don't know, whatever the term is there, back in October, I think, last year, November, said there was going to be an N1 starfighter, that they had seen one on set for, and I think I remember him saying it was for the Mandalorian. They thought it was scenes for the Mandalorian. And so that was, once they panned over and they showed what was there, I was like, holy crap, it's an N1 starfighter. And that was only because of that leak.
Right.
But yeah, when they pulled that back, I thought, what in the world? Like, this is not where I thought this was going. And I couldn't be happier. I was really happy with the final outcome there. She says I wrote this, no skin off my dip swap. I don't know what that is. But Pelly, my goodness, you're a very troubled and deep person. But I was screaming too because like as soon as that happens, right? She finally talks him into okay, let's give it a shot, right? He doesn't want this thing. Just let me build it out. You can take it for a test. This is that used car salesman pitch that she was going through, which I thought was great. And then we rolled right into a freaking 80s montage where they're building this thing up. I mean, someone needs to add in, like there's a movie called Better Off Dead where they rebuild like a 69 Camaro Super Sport. And it was very similar to that. I don't know if that's where they got it from, but I want them to take that music, lift it, and put it in this scene in the background. And if no one's going to do that, I will make the effort to do it myself.
Yep. We got some really, really, really intimate details about Jawas amidst all this stuff too.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. This is where, there was the one line that, when she was talking about furry Jawa, how furry they were or whatever. And then later on they bring that, what was it? The galactic, what was it? Where I wrote it down here.
The combustion thing, the tube.
Yeah.
What they had from A New Hope.
Yes. Well, it wasn't just A New Hope. I know a lot of people said that, but it's actually somewhere else too. What the heck? I wrote it down somewhere. Either way, when they brought that out, and she's like, I dated a Jawa. And then suddenly the Jawa says something to her.
Like hitting on her.
And she responds back, oh, that's okay. I'm working on me right now. Just go find the parts. I thought that was the funniest line. I was like tickled to death that like he...
Jawa's got game, man.
I just saying. Oh, he was coming on to her, like asked her out. But I just like that. I'm working on me right now.
Yeah, Jawas need love too, man.
Yeah. Okay, so we get into the rebuilding of it. We got to see the Turbonic Venturi Power Assimilator. Wait, what?
How many times do you think it took for them to get that?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, all this was good, and then so I actually went out and got. I don't have it's on the bookshelf behind me, but I went and got. I have the cross sections of episode 1 with all the vehicles.
Yeah,
and I popped that open to see if maybe they pulled it from that book, and that part's not listed anywhere in there. Right. So it sounds like it's something they just made up.
Right. Well, it's a modification.
Yeah. Okay, and then we see the Mando sends them out for custom parts. And yeah, boy, I'm missing all these screenshots. I can't believe that. Mando's missing, or he tells him he needs some special modifications, which I thought was cool. He's kind of customizing it. It seems like he's into it now and rebuilding it and all that, making it his. And then we get to. I think we're finally here. I've got these pictures here where he finally fires it up. There's the power getting fired up.
They were putting the final touches on it. They got the Gonk droid.
Yep. Which finally got some use. This was a cool moment because if you played Fallen Order, the whole point of the BD unit is to kind of do this thing where it shows you, where things go, right? And so we got to see them. This is like right out of the dang video game, which was awesome. But we got to see him do that. Yep. Here's where he's stomping his little feet because he gets excited because I think he compliments him or something, right?
Yeah, thanks, buddy. Or thanks.
So I wonder if he's going to have this droid. Because if you think about Mando,
man, all right. So
I ship everybody, but listen.
You ship everybody.
Listen though. So what would it say though? Like, because Mando was so anti-droid, right? First season. And then he's going to be walking around with one strapped on his back. I mean, awesome. Or maybe there was a little image that I posted that someone made, not me, of Grogu riding this thing like a little ATST walker.
That was funny.
That would be really cool. But I don't know. I like this. Everybody likes the BD unit, and he seems really cute. And
yeah, way better than Dio.
There we go. I want to see more of this droid.
Yep.
That droid is so adorable. Yep. Oh, let's see here. Okay, more pictures. Like she's posing on this one. That's right. Gross. Maybe they're just out of order. I don't know. But yeah, I'm just kind of scrolling through some of these. There it is. So this is the cryogenic density combustion booster is the name of this thing. I love the fact that they gave it a name. We definitely see it in episode 4. It's what Han picks up when in the trash compactor when it's coming in. They kind of put that up and it starts bending. But the other place we saw this was in season 2 of The Mandalorian. Mm-hmm. You remember this was sitting on the side of a dumpster.
Yeah.
Which I thought, okay, well, they stole it off the belly of a Pike ship, but someone just had one laying around outside the dumpster on Mos Eisley, I think it was, or I don't remember what planet it was, but that was the other time. So it's actually been now twice. But again, Favreau and his toys, right?
Right.
Let's see here. And this one, he rolls it out. Like this shot right here was just awesome. Like it's so not. I would say it's not Star Wars, but these overhead shots that we just don't. It's not something we normally would associate as being Star Warsy. But I love the fact that we got him, and I think it works. And I think, like I said at the very beginning, it just feels like we're kind of refining what Star Wars means and what Star Wars looks like, which I like.
And I like that there's so many panels missing, and you have parts that are exposed. And,
Mm-hmm.
it still reminds you that it's still cobbled together of sorts, even though it's pretty well put together by this point.
It gives it character.
Yeah.
Which is what it does not need. I mean, this thing has been heavily modified. It's got this, what do they call these things? A blower on a vehicle? I think that's what they're called.
Yeah.
It's essentially what that is. And then he's taken, like, normally N1 starfighters have a gun turret, a blaster turret that runs down the middle right here. And they've now added 2. So there's one on each side. So it's like a twin firing N1, which I thought was pretty neat. I'm trying to think what else they've done. I don't know what these are down here. I don't think those are these on the underneath the belly on the sides of the engines. I don't remember these being on the N1s. So I don't know if that's another customization.
Yeah. Might be fuel or might be a missile
of some sort. I can't wait to see what else this thing has. Like because she does allude to the fact that I made a lot of, I made a lot of modifications myself, kid, but we're really busy. So if you'd get on board. And then so this whole scene too, I thought was just really great. Like I've got a picture up right now where he's kind of running his hand really like above the ship as he's kind of going around and looking at it, and he's really kind of admiring and adoring
checking
it. And plus,
the lines,
he's checking everything. I mean, there's sweat equity in this, right? He built this too, so he's got a sense of ownership and pride, and you can see it here. This was a great moment for her, I thought too, where she's kind of looking at him and she's looking at him like she's proud of him, and happy for him.
She's proud of herself. Let's be clear. But we did a good job. Like we actually pulled through.
Yep.
But then they removed the droid port, and a couple of things. When he got into this cockpit, I got claustrophobic feeling.
It is pretty tight. Yeah.
I was like, how would anybody? I mean, they talked about it had, you can do hyperspace without a hyperspace ring, which is pretty cool. And she was telling that when she was giving all of the, the specs of what an N1 could do. But who would want to travel for long distances in that little small canopy when you're coming from a gunship? That's a
different lifestyle.
Yeah.
Your quality of living has changed drastically at this point.
Right. You can definitely see Grogu up in that
he's going to be
behind him. Yeah.
It's going to be cute.
He can puke up there, clean it up himself.
Right. Just wipe it down when he's done. It definitely is claustrophobic here. I think later on we get what I call the crotch cam, where they literally had a camera like at his crotch and he's like holding the
well, it's the things. Aviator. Yeah. The Air Force pilot cam.
Sure.
Like they do.
It's a crotch, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
well, eventually what they'll do there for Grogu is they'll make it into a little turret.
They
had on the back on the like the World War I planes,
or on
like Indiana Jones in the Last Crusade.
Yeah, or on the Ghost.
Oh yeah, there you go. I was going to make an Indiana Jones reference, so you can't take that away from me.
The Ghost, and then what was the ship that the Bad Batch was flying around in?
Oh, the Havoc Marauder.
Yeah, I think they had a gun turret on as well. Oh boy. Okay. Let's see. This is where he fires up the engines. I don't know why.
You hear the car engine, the muscle car.
Oh, it's so yeah.
It's very George Lucas would have been proud.
Oh, he would have been. This was like a love letter to George Lucas and his love for like fast cars and muscle cars in every sense of the way. Even this, I mean, the way this thing started up and it was humming and vibrating, kicking out exhaust here. This was one of the coolest shots I thought as she's panning over left to right, and this thing is kind of like spinning. You can see that drum rotating. I mean, it's like this is so like mechanical, right, in terms of the way it works, and yet it's supposed to, deliver high speeds and go into hyperspace, which is just so freaking cool. I loved everything about this part, by the way, everything about it. I just thought it was great. And I want to ask you too, like this part, like right here. This looked like a model with a smaller model of Mos Eisley behind it.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
It didn't look CGI, which I'm fine with. It's not a knock. I actually like that. I love every time they do practical effects over CGI. But if you watch it.
It did though. I mean, that very much looks like a miniature because there's no people down there either.
Nope. Yeah, so here she is. She's talking him through. He finally fires this thing up. Oh man, this was like all pure exhilaration here, going into the Boonta Eve path. I mean, this is. I wanted to get a screenshot side by side, and I ran out of time, but they, she pulled right out of it. Yeah, recreated some of these scenes almost to the T, many times. This is a great shot here where she tells her to head, take your bearing north or whatever, and that's clearly Beggar's Canyon. We know that. Which he's about to head into, which was a reference to episode 4 and shooting womp rats, which we actually got a little bit later. Yep. This one was like,
this was fun. Yeah. The gate being smashed in still.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was like right out of this might have been, Anakin's pod racer.
Yeah. Next
and
day.
even the movements, the way it was kind of like spinning and kind of running through Beggar's Canyon, it drove more like a pod racer than it did a starship, and that kind of speaks to how fast this thing is and how much they've modified it.
Right.
But yeah, that was a great one. You can see Aura Singh's body still here. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. And then here's the little womp rat, which I thought was really cool. He gets up and then scurries off, which is what Luke said he used to fire, and what ultimately took down the Death Star. That skill. And then finally he takes it up into space, and there's just more shots of him heading out there. Here's the return of the little girl, which I think was kind of cool. Full circle, right? Now he sees her, and he nods. At least he nods.
Right.
Like when the little girl waved at him, I was like, come on, Mando, that's a kid. At least, say hi or something. But, he doesn't. That's not really him. So,
right.
But this time he acknowledges her. And there's me waiting for episode 6.
Waiting to see if she's got knuckles.
Chapter
her fingers
6
will actually bend.
Oh, yeah. Don't even get me started on that. I see you with your plastic hands. And this part, I was like, holy crap, he's going to get busted for this, where he goes and he's kind of flying around, showboating around that cruiser.
It was very reminiscent. It kind of felt like when Anakin was going around the droid ship.
At the beginning of episode 3?
No, I thought it was in episode 1 when he's... maybe it was episode 3 though. I can't remember. But
yeah. Were you talking about older Anakin or younger Anakin?
I thought it was younger Anakin with the...
Oh, well then it had the episode N1. 1.
Yeah.
With the N1. Yeah, no, you're right. Yep, I do. I get that. Yeah, there's a moment where I think it's when he's flying out of it. He flies out of it in a way. But again, these did look like miniatures as well. They just not look like CGI to me, if you go back and watch it closely here. This is great shots. I mean, this is all really good stuff here. And then just the kind of that freedom of him taking off and the music and the way it kind of crescendoed. And here's the good trick. Yeah, he did so much spinning. This was like, again, this wasn't, and I said it was a love letter to George Lucas with the N1 alone, but really this was saturated in episode 1 prequel references and just feels, and that's not a bad thing. I saw a lot of people that felt redeemed for, loving the prequel trilogy, which we're not going to even get into because I won't talk about that because it was a whole nother. People talk about how much people hate the sequel trilogy. You should have been around when the prequel trilogy was out because
it was not pretty.
It was not pretty. We just didn't have social media.
Right. We still all stood outside the theater though and waited for the next one.
Yeah, we did. We ate our Wheaties too, but I did like. I did love this scene where he's just kind of spinning in that camera. It's just a beautiful shot. Never thought I'd say that about Tatooine. And then finally he gets pulled over by the Popo for
hot dogging.
Yeah, demonstration, or is it what's the official term? Something of acceleration. It is an official term that you can get ticketed for kind of showboating like that. But all right, so we get into Carson Teva, which comes a little bit later, but then we get into what I call Duke. Duke Skywalker instead of Luke Skywalker. Do you have his name? I didn't write it down.
Mark Lloyd Jones, I think.
Is it Mark Lloyd Jones?
I think that's right. Yeah.
You got to watch out for those people who have three names. Like,
I don't trust anybody with 2 first names or 2 last names. It's a rule.
It's a good rule.
But yeah.
Okay, so anybody that doesn't know, this actor is the one that played Luke Skywalker when they did the final episode of season 2. He was the stand-in before they tried to CGI his face on there. So, okay, so now a lot of people have taken this as like, oh, they're signaling that, Luke's going to be in the next episode. I don't think that's the reason why he's here. I think he's an actor. He's part of the family now. They probably needed somebody to fill in. Hey, no one's actually seeing your face. Let's give you some lines. Let's give you some screen time. I think that's really where it's coming from. Although I'll say, Jordan Mason, who tends to have a pretty good streak of, he's on the inside, I would say.
Right.
He did post 2 days ago that he had from a credible source, and again, just relaying what he messaged about, that we would eventually see Luke Skywalker in the Book of Boba Fett this season. So whether this was a signal or not, I think the two are independent. I think this is just a good favor done for him, and good for him for having more screen time. But we'll come back to that, I guess, in just a second about whether or not we're going to see Luke Skywalker in the next episode. So, but yeah, that's who this is. Long-winded way there of saying all that. And this is that scene. I felt like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just too on the nose.
It was too on the nose.
Officer. Yeah.
Yeah. I get why they did it though.
Yeah. But I mean, clearly he hears his voice. He knows it's suspects at the very least that it's Mando.
Or someone sad. Yeah.
Right. Asking him if he, basically blasted his way out of Mos Eisley. No, they did have a Razor Crest that was trashed on Navarro. Or not on Navarro, it was seen on Navarro, right?
Yeah.
But this is where he gets to use turbo boost and shows how fast the ship really is.
Yep. This is nitrous oxide, or if you're
From a Dead Star. Yeah, they were both just completely up, like just taken aback. Like, how did he jump to hyperspace?
I couldn't even get a good picture of this.
It was
I was like trying
frames.
to, not enough frames. I was trying to click it as fast as I could, and look how far away it is. Like, I'm old, but still, I wasn't able to get a good shot of it because that's how fast it takes off. And if this thing goes as fast as this is just sublight speed here.
Yeah.
This is like, I don't know. It's a contestant for fastest ship in the galaxy, in my opinion.
Might be.
I mean, the Falcon can't take off this fast. I know it can't. I mean, it's fast, but I think it's got a higher top speed and all that. But this is a quick
pure
punch.
Acceleration. Yeah.
It's a muscle car.
Right. And they don't want to fill out paperwork, so they they go back on patrol.
Yeah, that's another trope that's used for cops. We're not going to report it because it's just going to cause us paperwork and
want to go get coffee? Sure.
I love this picture though.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's beautiful.
The two X-wings with the planet in the background.
Mm-hmm. And some of it's in darkness and some of it's not. You really get again, I can't believe I'm saying it, but Tatooine actually looks kind of pretty. This is him coming back, and this is where we get the final line. Wizard. Would you have a problem with this? Like, I know
it was funny.
I thought it was funny, and I know people said it was out of character for him, and I don't know, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but again, I think it's just it's.
But
Mando.
Here's what I liked about it. Mando is something totally different for him, and to the point, I don't know if he's ever flown anything like this, because she has to tell him stop flying it like a junk freighter, basically,
like a gunship. You're
right, and fly it like it's actual starfighter.
Starfighter, yeah.
Because he said it was handling really rough, right? Because he was just going too slow. There's turbulence, and it's not meant to do that. It's meant to slide and glide and slice through air and all that. So that he was excited and got a thrill out of it, and he showed that enthusiasm in his own way during the test flight. That he come back and say something out of character, I think is actually totally in character for the moment, or in the moment maybe, of he's excited. It's just something different. And he's like, yeah, that was wicked. It's like when you get off a roller coaster for the first time
yeah,
that
exactly.
you rode, right? And you're like, oh my goodness, that was insane. Let's go do it again.
Yep. Sorry, I'm just taking a note that says Photoshop Grogu into the cockpit in the wizard scene.
Right. And then put smooth as a Gonks scomp jack.
Oh, again, I don't know. Like these, I'm sure they're like fine and there's nothing meant by them, but it's so gross when she says stuff like that. I just, and so here's the line she says when he gets out. He gets out and she says, "Those J-Pulse engines really tighten the old evacuation port, don't they?" I'm like, so if you ever heard the term of it makes your, pucker up, that's exactly what she's doing. This saying here, just in a Star Wars term, which I thought was freaking hilarious.
I did like how they kind of shifted a couple of the things that we would say, like it'll make you blank yourself, and
yeah,
they found a way to make that sound like Star Wars too. But
yeah,
they kind of fit. But it's just kind of the rough around the edges of her character, which is just great.
I think I said on one of the episodes here this season, I said one of the things I really like is when Jon Favreau is writing dialogue. I think he does a really good job, and I think there were some pretty good examples here with Pelly's lines and then just Mando's interaction and that kind of thing. But Yeah, so that's sort of some of that same stuff here. Okay, so here's where she said, he's kind of pointing at himself like me, like somebody came looking for me, and she's like, yep, but don't worry, I ruled him out, which I thought this was a really good moment. And then of course you see Fennec Shan sitting up here at the very top, because you're not going to keep her out.
Right.
Look how she's like glowing in this episode.
I know, right? She's super happy, especially for the world crumbling around Boba right now. But maybe she got a little. You're going to ship them now?
Who? Mando and her?
Fennec and Mando.
Oh yeah. I've got a whole fanfic written already about it.
You'd be like, I'll remove my helmet for you.
He's already done it once. Yeah, promiscuous little guy taking your helmet off for every girl.
That's right. She does look very pleased to see him, though.
Oh, I know. I'm just like, she's real chummy with him. Like, I love, like, watch her walk. She's got like a little
sauntering.
Yeah, like a little saunter, sachet, strutting kind of thing
going towards him. Yeah.
Yep. She looks like Carla from Cheers. Nobody knows what that reference is. I do. Yeah, she dated Fraser.
Hey, Coach.
All right. So here's what she says. Hey, you're looking for work. And, tells him he immediately thinks, Boba Fett, it's on the house, which I thought was cool. Again, he doesn't need the credits, and sure, why not?
Well, we had talked about it before. I think, credit to you, I think, is that, are they friends? No, but did Boba keep his word? I think this is loyalty and solidarity thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it makes a lot of sense that we kind of had that up front, and Boba kept his word that they would help, get Grogu. And they were bound to that word, and he's eternally grateful for that still. So, yep.
So, yeah, he says it's on the house, and that, they need muscle. Well, he's the muscle. It definitely proved that in this episode.
Yeah.
But he says, first, I got to go pay a visit to a little friend. And that's kind of where it ends at that point.
Yeah. So, yes, but that kind of leads us to what episode or chapter 6 is going to look like. Do we follow the Mandalorian? Are we back to Boba Fett and Mando is off on his own for an episode or so? Or what does that look like for you?
You want me to answer first?
I just asked you the question. So yeah.
So I have an unpopular answer.
Glass of water and stuff while you wrap.
No, it's not going to be that long. We were at 2 hours and 21 minutes. I don't want to edit a 3-hour show. Now I sound like Mike. My goodness, what's happened to me? Okay, so I'll answer that with a very unpopular opinion. I would absolutely love to see Mando in episodes or chapter 6. However, I think it would be, I don't think it would be a good idea. Like this whole thing about doing an episode where your titular character is not isn't in the episode is not uncommon. I know people are looking at this and going, "What in the heck have I just seen here?" And I'm not preaching or anything, but there are many episodes, and I tweeted some examples. Right, I said X-Files, and I've got plenty of other ones, and I'm going to give you all of like 6 or 7 of them, and not all these are great shows, but it's done right. So X-Files, Lost, Dukes of Hazzard, Roseanne. There was some Seinfeld, or not Seinfeld. There was a Frasier episode as well. It's not uncommon for TV shows to have this one-off episode where we get away from your main characters and, like even Breaking Bad had one, although the main character was in it, but he's only in it for like 2 scenes and the rest had nothing to do with him. That's not uncommon, and it's not bad writing. It does feel weird. I totally get that. And like I said at the very beginning, you can be weirded out by the fact that we didn't see Boba Fett in this, but still like the episode. They're not mutually exclusive. You can like them both, right? Or feel both ways. But historically, it's always been a one-off episode. And I think if they went back and did a second episode, right? If they took 2 out of the 7 and dedicated them only to Mando, I don't know how I would feel about that. I mean, it could be like, maybe it feels the same where it's really cool, but then I think I would feel shorted that we didn't get Boba Fett for a full 7 episodes. And also, one other thing. I think originally we were looking at 6 episodes of Book of Boba Fett, and then they moved it to 7. So if you take it from that angle, you got a bonus episode with Mando in this, because we weren't supposed to get even 7 originally, I think, at some point. So, so I think that would be I wouldn't say a bad thing, but I don't know that I would like the fact that we had that scene. What I would like to see, finally getting to your answer, what I would like to see is the next episode is all about Boba Fett, and it's all about preparing for the war, or a part 1 of 2. Let it happen. And in episode or chapter 7, Mando and Grogu show up. They've already had their experience. They already had their thing, talk with Luke, or whatever you want to pretend happened, right? They come back in chapter 7, and they help turn the tide of the battle, or they just contribute to it in some way, whatever that is, right?
Right.
And then when we get to season 3 of Mandalorian, then we get the flashbacks, and we get some insight into what that reconnection was. And maybe Grogu shows up with the armor, and he's got a lightsaber, and I don't know, you can throw whatever you want in there, but then that gives him something to flash back to, or at least tell the story of when we get to season 7. I would rather that happen, because I do feel like this, if we're going to have this great battle, I don't know in 50 minutes or less, you're going to be able to tell that story, unless it's just all action beginning to end. And it feels like, because we haven't had, or we've had this episode, we've not had a setup outside of, we just know it's coming, but there's no preparation, there's no montages. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't feel like it's ready. It doesn't feel like it's ready yet. So,
Right.
Okay, so those are my thoughts. I would rather, that's what I think. What about you?
Right. Yeah. So when you think, what say you? So when you think about a book, right, a book doesn't have, it jumps around a little bit, right? And it sets certain characters up so they can come together in a different point. That's how I had to go back and look at this. And I in our chat, I had to make a comment where it was more, it's almost like this is a book of Mandalorians, or the book of Mandalore, or something like that. If you take Mandalorian and Boba Fett and smash them all together, and in retrospect, and in a more hindsight point of view, maybe something like that would have made more sense for the entirety of all of these episodes and all of the series and all of the seasons and all that. But just in just in that frame, if you just think of it more as a book, we get a chapter with somebody else in it. And I think some of this was important to be able to see how did Mando get back and forth, and where did he go? And really, this was a pretty straightforward, episode. It wasn't a lot of jumping around or anything like that, but how is he going to be effective? How's he going to get from here to there? Just answering a few questions for us before we get in. Now, I don't think he'll be in chapter 6. I'm agreeing with you. I think will show up in chapter 7, because like you said, they've basically told us he will. I don't know how I feel about Grogu showing up in chapter 7, and here's why. It seems like to me, if he were to go see him, a certain amount of time has to be spent there, to the point where you'd say, okay, is that a whole season of season 3 of Mandalorian? Maybe not, but is it an episode 2? Is it a few days or a week or a month or something like that? And I just don't know that we're going to have that kind of ramp up for the war. It seems like it's going to happen pretty quick, or we're just not going to have any concept of time, which is probably more realistic. But I think that's the only hesitation I have about Grogu showing back up in chapter 7, is just, was there enough time for them to go tell the other part of the story?
Yeah, right.
In The Mandalorian season 3, because I'm with you. Having 2 episodes back to back, now you've stopped telling Book of Boba, right? Now you've actually got away from that story, and you've refocused your attention elsewhere, and that's not what they want to do. It's not what, as viewers of the Book of Boba Fett, that's not what we should want, and it's okay to be interested in that story, and it's okay to be interested more in that story than the one we're getting for this series. But for this series, it's still about Boba Fett and what is going on around him, even if we take a small hiatus to catch up with someone else in order to get that character realigned with where we're going. We know we had to come into contact at some point with them, and they had to reach out. So it makes sense that Fennec Shan somehow learns that he's in Mos Eisley, and that he would go to Mos Eisley because he knows Pelimoto,
right?
And then to get a ship. So I was actually very satisfied with how they brought him back to Tatooine, because at the very first I was like, why the hell would he go back to Tatooine? Why does he want to go back to Tatooine? But then I was like, oh, I bet you Pelly did something. And then they did I sent me a message about a ship. So I was pleased with how they arranged that. It wasn't near as convenient as some of the other things that we've had to do, and throughout the the series, or some of the other shows that we've had.
And he got a ship out of it, right? A really cool ship. So
he did. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious.
Check that box, and don't have to worry. We don't have to tell that story going into season 3 now.
Yeah, curious how long it'll last, because I mean, doesn't seem like it really take much of a hit, but we'll have to see.
I love what you said about the book analogy. I hadn't even thought about that, and I know you posted. I think you said that in Discord.
It was in our little background chat with Mike.
our safe space. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'd love that because you're very right. You're 100% right. There are plenty of times where they deviate and tell another story, and then they come back and you realize, oh, there's some reason here. And on that note, I guess maybe the last thing that I want to answer or address, at least on this episode, is I always come back to the why, right? Why did we have to have this story told? There's a reason. Filoni and now Favreau, you can throw him in there, don't ever seem to put anything that doesn't have meaning. It's worth. It's not filler. I'm tired of hearing filler. There's always a reason why. And if you remember back, and I said this in Discord, so I apologize for those that read that, but if you remember back when the Book of Boba Fett was announced, there was a lot of confusion, at least in those first weeks or maybe even months, about whether or not this was chapter 3, right? Was this season 3 of The Mandalorian, but now it was just from Boba Fett's perspective, right? And what I think we got, I think what we're getting is this. One other thing, when all those shows were announced in like December of 2020, when Kathleen Kennedy got up and said, "Here's our roadmap," and all the shows are coming out, they talked about an event. Remember this? They were talking about an event that was going to occur, and that they were going to be doing some kind of. It was very nebulous, but they were going to be doing some sort of like cross-connecting storyline. I mean, everybody said it was very.
People love crossover events.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we do.
We talked about it in comic books. We talked about it with the Marvel series.
Shows. Yeah, I mean, they're fantastic.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think what we're seeing here is, although it feels weird, I get it. It does feel weird just on the surface, right? To have an episode of Book of Boba Fett with Mandalorian only. But I think what it does is it speaks to a larger connected storyline that they're trying to tell. And so while this may not be, while it may not be technically chapter or season 3 of The Mandalorian, there is definitely going to be some in my opinion, very strong connections between Mando and Boba Fett. They are building that relationship. And I mean, you think about it, you now have a person in Boba Fett who is without a family and understands the value of having a tribe, right? He's on that path. You've got somebody now on the opposite end who's just lost his tribe, who does not have anybody. So does he partner with Boba Fett? Does he look to Boba and say, "Look, I'm part of your clan now because these other guys, exiled me at this point." And then how does that play into that larger storyline of, because I think I'm almost 100% positive now that we are going back to Mandalore, and if he's not going to bring Mandalore back, someone is. Maybe it's Boba, maybe it's Bo-Katan, but someone's going to hold that mantle up. And so all those stories have to come together, and I'm starting to really wonder if that event that we're going to see is either the restoration of Mandalore or the reclaiming of Mandalore, whatever that is, or something like, Thrawn coming back with the lost fleet, right? Or something. There's got to be a reason why all of these stories are connected. That's the why, I think, here, is that these guys are very connected. These stories are very connected, and you can't tell one without the other because it's part of a larger connected story, and we just don't see that yet. And that's why it feels kind of weird for us.
Yeah. And I would love for Bo-Katan to get kind of a redemption, bit of arc in order, like, especially with what we got in this episode. It would be great for Bo-Katan to be able to raise the dark spear and earn it the right way and prove the doubters and the haters wrong. I was thinking about this. Yeah, I was thinking about this, and there was a little bit of irony thinking about what we had talked about when Boba Fett first came into Mandalorian, about how we felt about that, or how we feel if it was to happen. And we were very worried that Boba Fett would overshadow the Mandalorian himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
that really never happened. Boba Fett showed up, and it was still very much a Mandalorian story. Even though Boba Fett was really cool, it was still very much, they balanced it really well. Now we have this episode where it's almost like that inverse actually happened, right, to where this feels like it overshadowed Boba Fett, where some of the other episodes have had a bit of less consistency with, maybe with how much they've been well received from the general fan base, from a broader perspective. And so it was just the irony is always, I find irony really interesting and amusing most of the time. And so it was very funny that what we were worried about happening actually happened in the opposite way, where the new character is now outshining, the old standbys that we had, despite their badassery that they've had in the past. Yeah, good question from Twan here. Yeah, will we see Mando in the Ahsoka series? And I think that's what Albert's talking about. I mean, when we get to end of season 3 of Mandalorian, where does that leave us? Like, where do we go from there? Is that is that where we start to see Thrawn come back, or there's a, there's some other cliffhanger, there's some other integration of the stories that starts to show you the next handoff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what we'll start to see. And we start to see it around this time, right? You start getting to the last, that second half of the season, especially in those last 3-4 episodes, and you start to see little things come up here and there, and they start to give those breadcrumbs to you. And so it certainly, I think, is on the table.
I think it is. I think Mando is, to me, Mando is starting to look like that common thread, right? The one that threads every one of these stories, right? It's kind of, you're seeing all these different stories happen, but he's at the center of all of them, almost like R2, I guess. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, it's kinda, yeah. I mean, he's in all of them, and he's kind of the connecting point, or the what is it, the touchstone, right?
Yeah.
For all of these groups. So I think so. I would at this point not put it past them to put Mando showing up in Ahsoka and having a part to play in whatever they're going to do to either bring Ezra back or whatever that story is. And again, it's all leading to something, right? And he is kind of
same with Bo-Katan too. I mean, Bo-Katan can show up in Ahsoka, and that's how you get to I mean, there's like, it's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always a way to get back to another character now, the way they've built it. And it's very integrated storytelling. And then this is what we've been really happy with High Republic, right? That they've managed it. They've got a bit of an arc going on. They have an idea of where the direction they want to go, milestones for characters. And it starts to really feel like this is that thing too. And this is why it's interesting to understand what the hell is going on with like Rangers of the New Republic. Is that a thing anymore? And what was that story if it's not a thing anymore, if it's being retooled or whatever it might be? How do all these things continue to play in with one another? And so this is what we wanted, right? We wanted integrated storytelling, even though we're kind of, are we happy with the timeline? Wherever we're in is always up for debate, of course, but
yeah, that's fine.
But this is what we wanted. We wanted good storytelling, consistent storytelling, and a little mix, a lot of new characters, but also we'll sprinkle in the characters that we love in certain ways. Is we won't frown too hard about that one.
Yeah, and I think the nice to have, or the wish list, also included some kind of connection to video games and books and legends and all that, and we're getting all of that in this.
Yeah, good point.
So, I mean, come on.
Yeah, I remember there was a time where you and I were like, the books don't matter, and we weren't wrong. I mean, we were not wrong. The books did not matter, and now they're finding ways to integrate. I think it's still very small.
It is small steps, but we're seeing more and more of it, I would say, for sure.
It's getting there. I mean, it's sometimes because the books that we're getting are not in the same timeline, I think.
Yeah.
So you can't do a whole lot of it, but I think that's almost probably a good thing for right now. But I think the issue that we'll have with High Republic getting mixed in with some of this stuff is that it's very Jedi oriented, and the timeline we're in right now is not very Jedi oriented. So yeah. But anyway,
yeah, I mean,
say what you wanted.
Yeah, I was gonna say, maybe my final thought is, say what you will about the Force Awakens and the time jump, and as much feedback and criticism as that got.
Yeah.
But it's almost a blessing in disguise, because we're getting to see a lot of these stories told without the restraints of having canonized stories, and we know very little about this era, the timeline. And so, yeah, look what we're getting. We're getting all this kind of cool storytelling that isn't beholden to like the stories that we know of, canonized, of Luke and Han and all that stuff. So there's some liberty here.
And remember, we're getting this Lando and Luke book here pretty soon.
Oh yeah, that's right.
The next, I can't remember if it's February or March, I think. But I mean, that's another. Yeah, they're and Ochi Pastoon will be in there, and so it's a kind of a search quest, if you will. And so again, that's something else that'll help fill in some of the gaps. People want a Luke story, you're going to get it. Are you going to get the Luke Skywalker you want? Who knows? It's by an author we're not really familiar with, Adam Christopher, I believe. I think it's Adam Christopher. So we'll have to see how that one turns out. A buddy of mine at work actually pinged me about it just the other day and was cautiously optimistic.
That's fair.
My buddy Jamie. So yeah.
I'd say that I'd probably be going into that book as well, the same way. So.
Yeah, I'm nervous about it because I don't know how super interested I am about it. Like older Lando, I have less interest in than I do younger Lando for whatever reason, but I'm a strange person.
Yes.
In so many different ways.
And on that note, we'll end the show.
Bid you adieu.
Bid you adieu. All right. I can't believe how many people stuck around for 2.5 hours. So either you guys have
great turnout tonight, too.
Nothing to do, or we're actually doing something good here. So thank you in all sincerity thank you for sticking around as long as you did. The 8 billion people that are still with us.
Yeah.
You want to do shout outs? There's a crap ton of people.
Yeah, I all the usual guys. We love you. We appreciate you guys being here.
You've now just become the usual people because we're tired of naming you guys.
Right.
No,
yeah.
kidding.
All the spammers. We love you too for showing up. Hey, Fernando, thank you for showing up. Qui-Gon Jay. We're happy to see you guys, joining us too for the, maybe not the first time every time, but hopefully you guys will be able to make it out again. But of course, I mean, we got Cole, Dante was out there, Alex, Lauren, Steph, Ash, TJ was out, or Hard Counter was out there, Leland Henry. So thanks. He was late. We'll forgive you this time. Katya, of course. Hopefully you got some Rob out there. Rob's been sending us messages as well, having some chat with us. So we appreciate that. Jonathan Belkey. Hope I pronounced that right. Probably not. Thanks for joining us. Man, I'm just scrolling through and I just keep seeing new names. I mean, we had MD.
Dante.
Yeah, Dante. I got MD Schlower. It's Doc. So Doc, thanks for showing up. Doc's he's messaged me over on Discord a couple times, and
oh, that's right. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, and yeah, Dark Tower. Mike over at Dark Tower joined us early on. So
and Ash, who was the very first one, as usual.
As usual. Yeah. I called out Ash too, and so I think I got everybody. And again, we had a lot of lurkers. Again, we had a really, really good turnout tonight. So again, speaking
we can see you, by the way. Even though you're lurking, I can see you.
Oh yeah. We do have a count. We don't have names next to it, so don't panic.
Yeah.
Actually,
you're safe.
Actually, oh no, we don't. We'd see who likes and loves us. That's about it.
Yeah,
Mom. But yeah, we had a lot of people watching us anyway. So thank you guys so much. I think speaks to how cool this episode was.
Yeah, not us, the episode. So okay.
Hey, we appreciate that you guys want to hear what we think about it, though. So we hope you enjoyed that.
Hey, look, sorry, Jonathan says congrats on the 400 episodes and thank you for doing these shows. Really look forward to them, and you pronounced it correctly. Thank you.
Oh, cool.
You did that, not me.
Score one for the good guys.
Yeah, that's the only thing we got right tonight. Okay.
So happy 400th, Albert.
Happy 400th.
With a 2-hour and 40-minute episode.
Yeah. And as a bonus, Mike doesn't know this. I'm going to hand the show over to him so he can edit this because that's what he gets as a prize. So congratulations, Mike. You've earned it.
So we're doing Patreon next, right?
No, but I do want to come back and do a Patreon show. And
we're accumulating Patreon ideas now.
No, this one's going to be quick because I want to talk about. I want to speculate on Mando and where my new theories are going with Mandalore and how that's all going to play out. I was literally up till like 2-3 in the morning last night. I couldn't sleep. I was thinking about, what if this happened and that happened? And so I'm going to get my crazy hat on and we can just kind of talk and shoot the crap, on Patreon with our folks.
We've had a couple people ask about the live stream for Patreon. So how we do that is typically when we're done with the show, if we're going to record it afterwards, even if we're going to do it on another day, we post a link for it in Discord. So if you want to watch the live stream of our Patreon episodes, then join our Discord, earglumedia.com/Discord. You'll want to be there anyway, because right now the Boba Fett thread is going crazy. And we've had so many great conversations in there. Lucid Truth, some of the same names I commented here. So a lot of great conversation, but otherwise patreon.com/the Cantina Cast if you want to catch on some of that stuff. And of course we have a lot of other things we want to talk about, respect versus fear, which is a theme in Boba Fett, of course, as well. So
yep.
No shortage of content that we've had ideas for. Hopefully we can deliver them all in a reasonable amount of time. The good news is we only have 2 more episodes. So Book of Boba. So maybe we'll have a few minutes before we get back to High Republic.
Yeah, that's next after this, by the way. We'll get to Fallen Star. Oh boy, have I got some stuff to say about the Fallen Star. Okay, with that, I guess we will get out of here. We'll be back next week for Patreon, just a few days. Hang tight. We'll send you the link, let you know when that's going to be. And then we'll be back, obviously, for 401, which would be Chapter 6 of the Book of Boba Fett.
See y'all next time.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
You're still listening? Wow. That's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.